I have given credits to original author in description of this video, but if the original author wishes to reclaim copyright or remove this video, I kindly request before giving copyright strike, please contact us using the information provided in the channel info. We respect and acknowledge authorship rights, and I will delete that specific video by myself. Thank you. The Eighth Dragon Slayer by Spitfire 1. Albus Dumbledore sighed. During one of his order meetings, Voldemort had attacked the Potter cottage. Peter had been a spy the entire time. Lily and James following behind, they crossed the barrier of the Fidelis they set up. James, Lily, I'm so happy you're okay. A man with long wavy black hair and gray eyes ran up. Not now, Padfoot. We have to see if Harry is okay, James said. Entering into the house, they ascended the stairs and were both happy and sad. Crying his head off in his crib was their son Harry, but on the ground was the body of their close friend Remus Lupin. Oh Remus. You saved Harry somehow, Lily said, seeing his crib completely covered in runes. Harry stopped crying immediately when he heard his mother, Mama. He held up his hands. Lily smiled and picked her baby up. She took her sleeve and wiped the blood away from the cut on his forehead. Oh Harry, Mummy is so happy that you're alive. James, Lily, we have to hide Harry. He defeated Voldemort. We all know that his followers are going to come after him. Lily held her son closer. No, he is my baby. I won't be separated. Lily, if we send him to Petunia's, not only will he be safe, but you will be able to visit him. He will be with family. Yay, if you want him to be a house elf. Petunia would sooner drown Harry for his magic than keep him. I'm afraid it's the best way. There I can set up blood wards to protect him. Why not do that with me? I'm his blood too, and so is James. You know why, Lily. James looked to his wife curiously. What? Lily winced but placed a hand on her stomach. Both our magics will be out of whack for a few months, while it bonds with our new family member. James and Sirius gaped. Lily was pregnant again. Fine, Albus, but if my baby comes back abused, I won't be held responsible for what happens to them, or you. Albus Dumbledore nodded. A cloud above little winging Surrey began swirling. Little baby Harry watched fascinated. He was bored. He woke up freezing on a porch, not knowing where he was. Sitting up slightly, he didn't even notice as his body began to glow and vanish into golden dust particles. In the morning, Petunia Durlzy found a blanket and a card on her front porch and laughed uncontrollably. Vernon. My freak of a sister wanted to dump her freak son on us, but the boy isn't even here. Vernon smirked. Good riddance, I say. We don't need that freakishness around our Dudley. High up on a mountain, a blue dragon was looking out on the world. Igneel, Grandini, Wycelohia, and even Skiadrum and Metallicana have all selected a dragonslayer. With a huff that froze a nearby tree, she sighed. I'm beginning to think that those are to be the only ones to have children. I can't find anyone I can take in. Then she heard crying. Taking flight, she came across a little 1-year-old baby, with emerald green eyes and jet black hair. Hello, little one. I can feel your natural affinity to ice. She grinned. Perhaps you are the one I've been looking for. Picking up the infant, she took the child back to her cave. With this I have my child. She cut her palm with her claw and dribbled a few drops of blood in the child's mouth. His green eyes widened and he smacked his lips, then promptly passed out. The power of the blood she was giving him forced the wound on his head to close and seal over. It was July 6th and Corey sighed. She knew it was time to leave her precious Harry. She had delved into his magic to find his name. The boy was such a sweet little guy. It would break her heart to leave him. Harry, love, I have a gift for you. Coming, Mum. A 12-year-old boy with messy black hair and emerald green eyes ran up with a smile on his face. Here, love. She moved her wing and revealed a blue scarf he recognized as his mother's scales, and a cloak made of crystallized water of her tears. Harry smiled and pulled on his mother's gifts, and she put a sleeping spell on her son. Picking him up, she flew off towards the gate. Igneel, Metallicana, Wycelohia, Skiadrum, and Grandini all looked up in surprise as Corey landed with a 12-year-old boy being placed by their own children. He would be one of the older dragonslayers, on par with Gajeel I age. Hopefully their knowledge of their time with them would help the younger children who won't remember them, and therefore the emotions and hormones that the dragon blood in them would cause. Ah. Corey, decided to join in? Grandini asked, happy that she wasn't the only female pacifist to help defeat Acnologia. Hello Dia. Yes, when I heard of the plan I looked far and wide for my own child. I found Harry here. His magic is strong and vibrant. The gate opened and all 6 dragons dissolved and melded with their chosen dragon slayer. Taking temporary full control, they steered the children into the gate. Albus sighed. He had been getting railroaded when the public found out that the boy who lived disappeared. All 3 of the remaining Marauders, though Lily doesn't like being called that, were here. Harry is still alive and happy. These monitoring devices show that much. However, wherever he is aging faster than he should be. Lily's eyes widened. What? Dumbledore downed a lemon drop. According to this device, he is 12 already. Both men were freaking out, but Lily paled. My dream. This silenced everyone. What Lils? Sirius asked. I had a dream. A woman with blue hair and eyes. She seemed to have the shadow of a dragon came to me last night. She told me that Harry was fine and she was raising him to be strong, but that he wouldn't be the age he was supposed to be when I see him again due to the difference in time passage between worlds. Dumbledore sighed. So, he is in another world, huh? Wonder how that happened. However, we can be assured that he is alive and safe if a dragon is raising him. Plus, you can always keep track of him on your family tapestry. It does show the history of a select individual. James' eyes widened. Which you seem to have forgotten. Thank you for telling us he is safe, Albus. See you when school starts? James asked. Of course. I'll need my defense teacher and potions teacher. I only hope that the kids like you better than Severus. Lily grinned. They will. Sev only beat down those not in Slytherin. Never taught anything. I'll do better, but you're going to need to find a substitute for when I give birth. X-778, Harry, is this the place? Ica asked as she floated around her friend's head. In front of them lay the famous guild fairy tale. Harry smiled at his golden-colored flying cat. Yep. Let's head in. Opening the door, he was greeted by a mass brawl. Hello. We'd like to join your guild. The brawl instantly stopped except for a pink-haired boy being thrown into a wall near him. He smelled familiar, but brushed it off. A small elderly man opened his eye from the bar. Ah, a new member. What's your name and magic? My name is Harry Potter. I use Ice Dragon Slayer magic, and this is Ica. She uses Era magic. The noise instantly dropped to nothing. Ah. Welcome my boy and his companion. Where do you want your stamp and what color? Ica got hers on her back, in black, and Harry got his on his right shoulder in white. A party started up celebrating the new members. Hey, you smell familiar. If you really use Dragon Slayer magic, fight me. The pink-haired boy ran up with a fistful of flame. The guild blinked and the fire user was encased in ice instantly. A black-haired boy laughed. Nice one. It's good to see another ice user here. Gray. X-779. Alright brats. It's time again for the S-Class trials. This year's contenders are Erza, Scarlet, Mirajane, Strauss, Macau, Bolt, and finally, Harry Potter. The Guild W inclusion of so many younger guildmates being chosen. Meet at Mount Hakabe noon tomorrow. Harry was smiling widely. Being on this mountain reminded him of his time with his mother. Macau was shivering vividly, but he was surprised at the 2 girls around his age. They didn't seem bothered at all. All right brats. Before you are 4 different tunnels. Each tunnel has its own obstacles. One holds Laxus. First to reach the peak gets the promotion. Harry took the far right one. Nothing really happened the entire way up, until the tunnel expanded into a large cavern and runes appeared behind him. HMPH. Well, at least I can say I got an opponent that might give me a challenge. Harry turned to see Laxus standing there. Harry smirked as mist began emitting from his body just as lightning enveloped Laxus's. In an instant they were on each other, exchanging blows furiously, Laxus using his lightning to enhance his speed and Harry shielding what he could using ice. Beams of ice and lightning flying everywhere. Laxus was genuinely getting exited as Harry gave as good as he received. For every blow he landed on him, Harry would get 2 more back in return, not as powerful, but he made up for that in speed and frequency of the attacks. Leaping back he smirked as his pupils faded and lighting started emitting from his eyes. Not bad kid. Let's see how you deal with this. Harry saw his cheeks puff and Harry smirked. He would have a natural advantage with the freezing winds kicking up around him, so he began to inhale deeply, chunks of ice flying into his mouth. Lightning Dragon. Ice Dragon. Makarov sighed as 3 of the 4 sensors went off, signifying that Mirajane, Erza, and Macau were all eliminated. Only Harry stood, and he didn't have much hope for the boy as he had taken the path that held Laxus. All of a sudden a massive blast occurred and a stream of liquid ice shot into the air. 2 blasts later, after the dust cleared, he stared wide-eyed as his grandson and the Dragon Slayer were breathing heavily, both battered and bruised. "All right, kid. I ain't got much left in the tank. I'm putting everything I have in this one." Both leaned back and began inhaling, their cheeks bulging. Lightning Dragon. Ice Dragon. Roar. 2 beams of magic, one made of snow and ice, the other made of lightning, collided, but the ice began to overwhelm the lightning. A big explosion, and both Dragon Slayers were panting. "Hey. Perhaps I'll get a rematch when you're not surrounded by your element." Laxus collapsed quickly, followed by Harry. "Hee. Did I get the promotion, Master?" Harry asked, unable to even lift his head. Makarov sighed and jumped down. "Indeed you did, brat. Rest now, we will celebrate your promotion when you awaken." He was truly impressed with Harry. The boy always stood up to challenges that were way above his pay grade and somehow always seemed to come out on the other side. He could honestly say he wasn't sure how this battle would have gone if Harry wasn't surrounded by ice. Growing his hands, he picked up the 2 and began his way towards the rest of the guild, who was waiting for the announcement of the trials. Harry sighed as he stood at the grave of Lil Lasana. She had died on an S-class mission with her family. Reaching over, he grasped Myra's hand. The white-haired girl smiled slightly through her tears. Harry promised himself then and there that he would keep an eye on the 2 remaining Strauss siblings, though he couldn't help but feel things would get moving soon. He didn't know how right he was. Chapter 2a, End. Great reception to this. Now, I'm not very big on fairy tale lore. Biggest thing I'm aware of is the time travel with the Dragon Slayers, and the truth about Natsu's past. I hope I can live up to the hype. Harry is the same age as Mirajane and Erza, for those of you who want to know. Shorter chapter though, I focused on the Avengers crossover, plus, the first episode of Fairy Tale. Nothing really happens. Expect a longer chapter next time. I don't own Harry Potter or Fairy Tale. Hey Harry. Harry looked up from his beer to see the teenage pink-haired Dragon Slayer approaching. "What's up, Natsu? I just heard there's a salamander in Harjan. I'm gonna go check it out. It could be Corey or Igneel." Harry's eyes widened a little. "I'll tag along on the off chance that it is them, but I honestly doubt it. Harjan is a port town. Fire dragons wouldn't be comfortable there, and Mom hated the ocean." He got up and threw a few bucks on the counter. When the 2 Dragon Slayers were gone, Elfman sat down at the counter, seeing his sister's sad look. She always seemed to be sadder when Harry left. For all the matchmaking and flirtatious attitude, she cared for the boy. Even Elfman saw that. "When are you gonna tell him, sis?" He never did get an answer, but the guild master and Kana were thinking the exact same thing as Elfman behind their beers. Entering into Harjan almost puking the entire way, both Natsu and Harry stumbled their way off the train. Harry mumbled, "Why'd I keep letting you take me on trains?" Natsu walked unsteady. "I don't know. Maybe because it's the fastest way." Taking a deep breath, Harry finally worked through his unsteady stomach. "Let's split up, that way we cover more ground." Harry met back up with Natsu that night, not really finding anything. "Find anything, man?" "Just some guy who had a nickname Salamander." "Can you believe that Salamander guy is from Fairy Tale?" Both Dragon Slayers' eyes sharpened and they took off flying with their cats. Natsu burst through the roof and Harry caught some keys he had seen being thrown from the window. Gate keys. Wow, talk about rare magic. A blonde girl was carried out by Happy and Harry threw her the keys. "These are yours, yay?" "Thanks, Aquarius would have killed me." "Open gate of the water bearer, Aquarius." She dipped the key in the water and Mermaid came out. "TCH. You're lucky he was there to catch my key, girl. Take that boat back into port." Harry and Aika flew way high up to avoid the massive whirlpool of water that erupted from the mermaid's urn. Landing next to the boat, Harry sighed and looked around. "Geez. You'd fit right in at Fairy Tale, girly. That was massive overkill." Harry watched Natsu lay a beat down to the fire magic user who apparently never learned that fire magic doesn't work on Natsu. A punch to the face and the man went flying into a bell across town. "See? Natsu overdid it too." Natsu grabbed the blonde's hand. "Come on. We gotta go." Harry following after them. "Where are you taking me?" Harry laughed. You wanted fairy tale, right? You're looking at 4 members right now. Like I said, you'd fit right in. Lucy's face lit up and she chased the 2 mages laughing. All right, let's go. The army right behind them. Lucy was amazed. Both of these mages were literally green in the face. Are you guys okay? The female cat who had introduced herself as Ica giggled slightly. Yes. They're fine. Stronger dragon slayers all get motion sickness. They will be fine when the train stops. Lucy nodded. I see. Well, I suppose that it makes sense. They would have to have some kind of weakness for all that power they have. This is assuming Harry is as strong as Natsu. Ica nodded. Harry is an S-class mage. Natsu has at least that potential, but he hasn't realized it yet, so right now Harry is stronger. Though Harry's latent potential is great as well. Something is blocking it though. Once he can get over that, I would honestly be interested who was stronger. If Natsu uses Fire Dragon Slayer magic, what magic does Harry use? Obviously Dragon Slayer magic, but it can't be fire as well. Happy spoke around his fish. Harry uses Ice Dragon Slayer magic. He has been in Sorcerer's Weekly Lucci. I'm amazed you haven't heard of the Yuki of Fairy Tale. Lucy's eyes widened. He is the Yuki? The one that everyone is wondering if he is a bachelor or in a relationship with one of the girls in Fairy Tale. Ica nodded. Yes. He is single though, but he has a very close relationship with Mirajane. They aren't together, but Mira clearly Lucy, eyes widened. Whoa. He's considered one of the strongest in Fairy Tale. Both cats laughed. Yes. But he is a gentle soul. He will fight, but he tends to hold back a lot. That report came on a mission where a ton of people watched him get really pissed off. Lucy nodded. It's when he earned the name Yuki, Demon of Ice. Ica nodded. Get some sleep, child. We have a few days trip to Magnolia. Lucy nodded and let her eyes drip close, a slight smile on her face at the thought that she was being taken to her dream guild by 2 of the most well-known mages. Sirius Black opened his eyes and smiled widely. He did his morning ritual and flowed over to Potter Manor. James. Get your pensieve. I want you to see this dream I had. James came down with heavy bags under his eyes. What's going on, Padfoot? Rose kept us up all night. Why'd I have to see your wet dream? Sirius rolled his eyes and shook his head. I haven't had those since I started dating Amelia. James grumbled but nodded. It was true. After he reignited his relationship with Amelia, Sirius still joked around, but he kept the real dirty stuff to a minimum. He waved his wand and the family pensieve flew in over a yawning Lily and Rose. Sirius extracted his memory and they all entered into the pensieve and the scene started. Harry's cloak was flapping in the wind and he glared at a beast that none of them had seen. Demon. I have been paid to stop your rampage on the town. A female fell from the roof and revealed a female, almost human in appearance, such a handsome young man. Come here, little boy. The 3 adults all felt the magic laced in her voice. Harry stiffened and growled. They watched as he began fighting, channeling his magic, fighting using ice magic. Lily was astounded. Her oldest son was wielding magic so freely. Then a stray blast slammed into a nearby boulder and a cat was flung out and slammed into a wall. Harry turned to the cat and his eyes widened. Ica. He stared at the cat as the demon laughed. They watched as a sky-blue aura surrounded Harry as his hair turned into ice and scales erupted from the skin under his eyes. They watched as a roar erupted from his mouth. A massive blast of magic blew the whole cave roof off and Harry chased after the demon. A wing attack here and a roar there. They watched as he landed near the village and saw several people peering at their boy. Their attention was drawn back as a bright light erupted from a magic circle underneath Harry. Dragon Slayer secret art. Ice began swirling around him. It almost seemed like wings made of pure ice erupted from his back, falling ice meteor. Harry leapt up into the air and behind him a massive ball of ice began to fall behind him. Harry erected a barrier all over the city near them. A massive explosion sounded as they watched as the demon froze and shattered. Harry landed and let out a roar that shattered the ice wall and the ice began to dissolve and Harry collapsed and lost consciousness. The people gathered around him and they eyed the crater he had made now filling with water. This boy is a demon, eh, Yuki? Murmurs of assent sounded but one girl said, but, look. The damage he has caused the lake to expand and come nearer to us. They all cheered at that and took him and the cat that landed near him with wings that vanished, into the village to rest and recover. The four were ejected out of the pensive in disbelief, except little Rose, who giggled and clapped her tiny hands. Why were they cheering? James asked. Lily sighed and sat down, stunned by the power her boy displayed. They were clearly living off that lake, fishing for food and selling it for profit. They saw it as a good thing when the damage he caused would bring the lake they lived off of nearer to them. Clearly that would have been good for the Muggles, but if you didn't notice, he is in a place so abundant with magic, not even the Muggles blinked at the open use of magic like that. James smiled slightly. At least he is strong enough to look after himself. I've never seen magic like that. Lily smiled down at her daughter that now had drifted off to sleep. He is certainly able to look after himself. I just hope we can see him again soon. Sirius laughed. Yes, I agree. I wouldn't mind being there. Magic's so common everyone uses it, sounds like a paradise. Lily laid down next to her husband after Sirius went home and smiled at the picture of Harry near her at all times. We will see each other again soon, baby. Chapter 3a. And so I got a few complaints last chapter. I know I never explained why Mira already likes Harry. It will happen, just be patient. Now, I am not sure what I am going to do about the HP universe. My plan currently is to bring him to Hogwarts for like a chapter or so, yay. Although I may just have some people go to Fury and abandon that world, IDK yet sorry. Don't own Harry Potter or Fairy Tale. Harry smiled as they exited the train station. It took a few minutes to recover from their motion sickness though. They led Lucy through Magnolia. Natsu entered the guild by kicking in the door. We made it back alive. Almost instantly Natsu started a brawl. Harry grinned and shook his head, until Kana's beer keg ended up thrown into his face. He growled and leapt in, throwing fists and feet. Lucy looked in disbelief as the whole guild was sucked into the brawls. Whoa, that happened fast. Oh, are you a new recruit? Lucy turned around and began fangirling out as she saw Mirajane. You're Mirajane. Shouldn't we stop this? Mira giggled and placed a hand on her cheek. Oh, I'm sure it's fine. Besides, the view isn't half bad. Lucy turned and followed her line of sight and blushed as she saw not only Natsu waving someone's underwear around, and a raven-headed boy, completely naked. She booted him to the other side of the guild for asking for her underwear. But Harry had also lost a few garments as well. He was down to his underwear, though also had burns on his body. That was also due to Natsu. Just before everyone began flinging around spells, a giant stomped down. Enough of this. Lucy was trembling and the whole guild froze. Natsu began laughing and calling everyone cowards, so the giant stomped on Natsu. Oh, hello master, I didn't know you were here. When his eyes landed on Lucy, he shrunk down and a small man waved, nice to meet ya, newbie. Makarov jumped up. You've done it again, you bunch of clods. Look at the stack of paperwork the Magic Council sent me this time. Harry smirked and booed. They suck weed. Laughs rang around the guild, even from the master. Very funny, Harry. He lit the paper on fire and threw it. Natsu caught it and began eating it. He isn't technically wrong. I believe that you must be free to stretch your legs and grow. He held up his hand with his pointer finger and thumb pointing out. Everyone smiled and repeated the gesture. Harry sat down and smiled at Mira as she slid a beer towards him with a smile and turned to stamp Lucy's hand. Master, have you heard from my dad? A small boy entered the hall. If I recall, your father took the job on Mount Hakobe. Your father is a wizard's son. Have some faith. The boy freaked out and punched the old man in the face and ran out. Harry sighed and placed some money on the table. Thanks, Mira. I'll catch you later. Harry had already redressed, so he snapped his cloak on and joined Natsu in heading out. What was that all about? Lucy asked. Harry and Natsu are different than you would think. Natsu is a lot like Romeo. You see, Lucy, both boys were raised by dragons, Natsu by Igneel, and Harry by Corey. Mira picked up Harry's glass and began to clean it. Igneel found Natsu at a young age. He took Natsu in and raised him. For Harry, well, Corey found him when he was just a single year old. I can't honestly say, but I think those two had the most loving parents, but both lost their parents after a number of years. Ever since then they have both been living to find those two dragons. Harry though understands this situation a little better. You see, unlike Natsu, Harry found notes and a lol parents. Apparently a man tried to kill them, and to protect Harry they sent him away. That's when Corey found him. So when he found that out, he decided to find them too. They both know what it's like to not have parents, so they are going to go get Romeo's father so he doesn't become subject to their pain. It's probably why those two get along. When Natsu joined and got into fights with Gray constantly, everyone just figured that he would do the same to Harry. It was a few months later that they realized that Natsu didn't have a problem with ice mages, he just clashed with Gray. Gray and Natsu are very similar. Harry, well, he was a quiet guy back then, he never antagonized anyone, and eventually, they just built this mutual respect for one another. Harry almost threw up as he listened to Lucy explain why she wanted to come along. He really hated having motion sickness. At least till the carriage stopped and they stepped out. He did feel bad for Lucy though, a sleeveless shirt and a miniskirt, not the best choice for blizzards. Waving his hand, the snow stopped assaulting them. He was slightly irritated though. Lucy must be from a high-end family, she tended to complain a lot. Harry. That caused both dragon slayers to stop and look around. Natsu. The pink-haired dragon slayer just nodded. Yes. I hear it as well. Lucy blinked. What? Someone is calling out to me. The trio began walking again, Lucy following. I didn't hear anything. Harry looked back, not a surprise. We dragon slayers have great ears. This smell. Natsu grinned widely. That's a dragon. Harry shook his head. No, that's a very old scent. I can't believe her smell is still here after so long. Lucy perked up. Your mom? Harry just nodded and they entered a cave. It was clearly inhabited at one point. The only thing remaining though, was a silver hand-sized mirror leaning against a wall. Before they could grab it though, a huge monkey man landed in front of them. Harry actually growled, his eyes glowing. A Vulcan dares to desecrate the home I shared with my mother for 12 years. Lucy's jaw hit the floor as Harry began wailing on the thing, ice flying everywhere. If she had blinked she would have missed the fight. Because within a few seconds the Vulcan was hanging limply from the wall, at least until it was covered in light and a blue-haired man tumbled to the floor. Geez Harry, you couldn't have taken it easy on me? Harry deadpanned. That was easy, Macau. You're lucky I could smell you or I would have killed that Vulcan. Harry, even the non-dragon slayers heard that one. Harry picked up the mirror and flipped it over. He blinked when, instead of his own reflection, he saw a woman with hair that resembled fire. James. He found the mirror. The three others of their little group kneeled down to see what was going on. Who are you? Harry asked. Two men entered the frame. One of them looked like Harry when he was a kid, before he decided to grow his hair out. It was weird, the resemblance. The other had gray eyes and long wavy hair going down his back. All three of them smiled widely. It's not a surprise that you don't remember us. You were only one after all. I am Lily, your mother. He is James, your father. And this guy is Sirius, your godfather. Natsu grinned. He looks just like you when we first met, man. Lily Potter had been carrying her communication mirror with her for a week now. She had performed a very complicated ritual on its twin to send it to her son. She had just sat down for dinner when she felt it heat up against her skin. She snatched it so fast James and Sirius blinked. She gasped and smiled. There was her son, a little under 20 years old. His hair was down to his shoulders, and he styled it to make him look like it was wild instead of the bird's nest that he shared with his father. His eyes physically glowed faintly with power. James. He found the mirror. Both men leapt up and stood behind her as they smiled down at the boy. Who are you? I'm your mother, and this is your father and godfather. Three more people came into view. One an older man who looked like he got the snot beat out of him. Harry blinked. Oh. James laughed. That's all we get, huh? For a little while they all talked, but eventually the blonde girl began shivering and Harry sighed. If we stay here much longer Lucy and Macau will freeze. Neither are dressed for blizzards. Harry. James Potter. Neither are you. You're wearing a short-sleeved shirt. Harry shrugged. I'm an ice mage. We don't get cold. Natsu here is a fire mage. We don't really feel cold. So, this mirror. Keep it. If you call out one of our name, it will heat up and allow us to talk. Wherever you are has very diverse magic. I'll talk to you later. Lily had tears in her eyes as she stared at her own reflection. We finally can talk to him. James smiled. I wonder how people would react to him coming back as a 20-year-old. Lily smiled. Harry was supposed to be on the train to Hogwarts this year. The wizarding world was about to get a slap when their savior doesn't come. Especially that rude redhead Weasley. I am going to work on modifying that ritual. Perhaps we can bring him home, or maybe we can go there. That world clearly has no biases. Sirius grinned. I wouldn't mind. After Lucius recovered, the ministry has been insufferable. The two Potters nodded. Harry and Natsu were holding up Macau, who could barely stand. Hey Romeo. The boy who had been crying looked up and smiled widely, tackling his father. Dad. Macau smiled at his son. It's all right, Romeo. Next time those kids pick on you, you say, can your dad beat 29 Vulcans all by himself? Romeo grinned and said, I will, Dad. I'm proud to be a wizard's son. He turned and saw the 5 that had brought back his father, Natsu, Happy, Harry, Aika, and Lucy. Thank you. He cried out. Harry just waved his hand as his cloak and Natsu's scarf waved in the wind. Lucy turned around and smiled widely, waving. Harry was relaxing today. Natsu had asked him to come along with him and Lucy on a mission, but Harry decided to take today off. Hey Harry. Kana stumbled over. Come on. You're drinking with me today. Wakaba is already out and Macau refuses to drink today because he promised Romeo he would take him on a job and teach him fire magic. He ended up dropping his mirror and was dragged off with her. Mira scowled. Harry had actually given Kana a run for her money and both passed out drunk, Harry on top of Kana's chest and Kana was holding him close. Should have saved him from that. Although it was fun to watch them, never seen anyone drink Kana under the table. A faint buzzing sound reached her ears and she saw a mirror on the table. Curious, she picked it up and gasped when, instead of a reflection of herself, she saw a woman with red hair and the same eyes as Harry. She blinked. Who are you? Where is Harry? Mira blinked. Oh, he has passed out now. Had a drinking contest with Kana. Can I take a message? She blinked and scowled. My son drinks. Mira laughed slightly. Usually he only has a beer or 2 a day, but he took today off of jobs, so yay. She brightened. Apparently Harry had come into contact with his birth parents. Lily sighed. Well, at least he takes it easy. I'm his mother, Lily Potter. I only really called to get him to tell stories of his adventures to his younger sister. Mira blinked and smiled. Oh, I can help. Harry and I went on a few missions together when we were younger. The woman smiled and the mirror shifted and she saw a younger redhead. This one with hazel brown eyes was looking expectantly at her. Harry and I were on a mission one day. We were hired to exterminate this dark guild. A few hours later she smiled at the woman who beamed. Thanks, it usually takes forever to get Rose to sleep. Mira just smiled and waved it off. It's fine with Natsu and Lucy on a mission and with Kana passed out, it's slow. It was nice to meet Harry's family. So, what are you to him? Oh, we're just friends. But you want to be more. I can see it in Yod, told you it was obvious. Mira, Harry is just oblivious. Lily smiled at that, just like his father. Hey, I have a question. Master looked to the mirror. What is it, child? If I were to, say go there, would my family be welcome? Makarov smiled kindly, of course. The feel of the magic on this mirror is different, of another world. So you don't know how this world works. To us magic is found in everything from our vehicles to our shops. Guilds like ours were designed for mages of all ages to come together and work. We at Fairy Tale welcome any and all new mages. We are a family together after all. The woman smiled and looked at her watch. I've gotta go. Perhaps I will see you soon. I found how Harry ended there. Now I just need to find a way to open the portal to that world. Her image faded and they saw their own reflection. Mira smiled. What an interesting piece of magic. At least Harry can speak to his parents again. Makarov nodded. She was a very nice and intelligent girl. I hope she does come here. Harry sighed. He had a bad headache from all the booze he had consumed. Everyone had stared wide-eyed at him. Some saying Kana had never been drunk under the table. Natsu and Lucy were off to the side. Apparently the mission they had was not what it seemed and neither took payment. He downed Myra's special anti-hangover headache and shook his head. Geez. Remind me to never do that again. Mira giggled. I'll try my best. Makarov just grunted. You probably won't have a choice. Nobody has ever drunk Kana under the table, so she will probably come to you more frequently. Harry sighed. Loke burst into the guild. Guys, Erza is back. The whole guild quieted and Harry chuckled. It always amazes me the fear you guys have for her. yet you guys continue to piss her off. A thud sounded and Harry turned. Thank you, Harry. For the next few minutes she ranted about the destruction and mayhem they, Natsu, had been causing. Erza huffed, either way, Harry. I need you, Natsu and Gray to meet me at the station. We have a situation on our hands. Harry cracked his neck and gave a feral grin. Who we hunting down? In due time. Harry nodded and stood. Natsu, Gray. Go pack your stuff. Lucy, you're coming too. It's about time you were shown how strong you can get with us. Erza smiled at him. Mira glared at Kana and then Erza. She could sense something from those two. So, Eisenwald, huh? Harry said. He was being floated by Aika so he could listen to Erza. Natsu was knocked out. Erza nodded. They were talking about something named Lullaby. I could swear I've heard that before, Lucy said. Harry nodded. It's a fairly low-level death magic. A demonic flute from the Book of Zareth. They won't be able to do much. That flute won't affect anything from fairy tale. The only damage they could do is A, if they used it on a town full of people who don't use magic beyond everyday use, and B, if they released its demon form. The train finally stopped and Harry was slightly annoyed at the golden cat napping on his head, but he didn't say anything because she had been carrying him so of course she was tired. He grabbed Natsu and flung him over his shoulder while Happy grabbed his bag. Just as he was about to step off the train he noticed a shadow moving unnaturally towards him. He growled and threw Natsu out. So, a group of high and mighty fairy tale flies come here. The compartment began to chill. Ah. You have the flute. I will be taking that. Unfortunately the train began to move and he was instantly thrown off whack. A shadow slammed into him and he was sent flying out of the train. Erza sighed as Harry landed at her feet. What happened? Eisenwald on train, has flute. Erza growled and threw Harry into the magic mobile they had just rented and sped off in pursuit of the train. They eventually came to Oniba's station. Natsu was still out cold, but Harry stumbled after them while Lucy helped Natsu. Erza sent off Nastu and Gray to stop the loudspeaker from being able to broadcast the death song while Lucy, Harry and her went to town laying a beat down on the Dark Guild. Eventually they noticed that it was a trick and were sealed into the station. Well then, there isn't much danger I guess, Harry said as they tried to get Kageyama to unseal the barrier. Lucy looked over confused. What? Why? Harry smirked. The only town beyond this one is Clover. The guild masters are all there. That flute won't even make them wince, and that pompous wind user won't stand a chance against any of the masters. That's it, Happy cried and pulled out a gate key. Harry's eyes widened. How does Happy have the gate key for Virgo? Happy posed. Likely trying to show off to Aika. She told me to give it to Lucy because Duke Everloo voided their contract. When they got outside Harry noticed Natsu and Happy flying off and growled. Aika was still low on magic power so he couldn't follow them. Virgo, stop. But princess, your panties were showing. Harry collapsed from laughter at the look on Gray's face. By the time they had caught up with Natsu, Aragorn was down for the count. Unfortunately Kageyama continued where he left off and Harry smacked Natsu upside the head. You really thought it was a good thing to bring him with? I wasn't gonna let him die. Harry shook his head. That wound wouldn't have killed him. They all began the trek to Clover on foot. They eventually ran into the guild masters. Shish, it's just getting good, the master of Quattro Cerberus said. Oh, you two are cuties, just my type, Master Bob of Blue Pegasus said, hugging Natsu and Gray to him. Harry watched the conflict run through Kageyama as he eventually collapsed, unable to play the flute. Then Harry winced as the flute took on its demon form. I will consume your souls, it roared, as the plant life began to wither away and die. Erza re-equipped into her black wing armor. Let's go, Harry, Erza, Natsu, and Gray all dashed forward to take it out. Harry had formed ice wings onto his back as he and Erza began wailing on the upper half of the thing's body and Natsu and Gray the bottom half. Eventually it got so pissed that it let off the death song, but the holes that they had caused all over its body stopped it from using its melody. Natsu leapt up. The flames of my right hand, the flames of my left hand. Put them together and you get Fire Dragon Brilliant. Flame. Harry growled and stomped his foot. Lucy watched amazed as not only Natsu's attack blew her back, it had enough power to completely wipe out the town. However, instead of that happening, it was like it was funneled back up into the sky. When the dust cleared, a massive flower of ice stood where the demon was, wiped out by Natsu's attack, that had oddly enough melted Harry's ice enough that it formed a giant rose. Other than that, there was no damage to any surrounding properties. God damn it, Natsu. You could have destroyed the whole town with that attack, Harry growled. Natsu just laughed. Nah. I knew you were going to save it. You have to be the only one in Fairy Tale that cares about that, most of the time. Harry sighed and turned to the headmasters. The flower will fade in a few hours. Oh my. Such a rowdy bunch of children you have, Maki, Master Bob said. Makarov, who was recovering from a near heart attack and thanking his lucky stars that Harry had joined the guild, he could only imagine what the damage cost would be if Harry wasn't around. Yes, some of my most promising children. He smiled slightly at the group who were all laughing happily together, a nice family. Harry smiled over at them and waved, likely having heard them. Natsu may have the best sense of smell in the guild, but Harry had the best hearing. The conference of the guild masters complete, the newly formed team Natsu followed their master back to the guild. Chapter 4 Don't Own a Thing, Sorry. Harry gazed at the S-Class request board. He was gonna head out with Erza when she got back on an S-Class request, but the one they were gonna take was gone. Laxus, did you take that cursed island quest? The blowfed, not worth my time. He was about the only one who Laxus didn't badmouth, mostly because he beat him in a fight and never really stopped striving to be stronger. That didn't mean Laxus liked him though. Harry leaned over the railing. Hey Mira, did Erza already accept that island quest up here? It's missing. The whole guild quieted and Makarov spewed his tea. Natsu didn't? Harry blinked as Erza came in. Natsu took a S-Class quest? Harry sighed and leapt down next to Erza. Any chance you can put us down for that quest? We were gonna take it anyway. Makarov nodded. Mira and I will see to it, Harry. Just bring back those kids. They're in trouble. Harry saluted and looked up into the rafters. Come on, Ika. He didn't really bother asking if Erza was okay. She looked really pissed. Harry would have laughed at the way these pirates were acting around Erza, but his damn motion sickness was acting up. They were a few hours away and he needed something to distract him. As luck would have it, his mirror heated up and Harry looked into it. Hey mum. Harry, are you okay? You look sick. Drawback of my Dragon Slayer magic, gives you a bad case of motion sickness on any and all vehicles. What are you doing right now? Erza and I were gonna take a quest, but Natsu stole the thing first. He wasn't ready for it yet, so we have to track them down. It was only made for S-Class mages like me and Erza. He nearly barfed as Big Wave rocked the boat. Why didn't you take Mira? I'm sure she would like to get out of the guild every now and then. Harry chuckled. Unfortunately, she lost her ability to use a lot of her magic a number of years ago. She can only use her magic to alter her body slightly now instead of taking over like she used to. Lily blinked. Lost her magic? Harry shook his head. No, she can in theory still do it. I think it's a mental thing. Her sister died a while ago, and she changed. Lily smiled. It's psychosemantic. She will eventually be able to use her full ability again. Harry, the island is coming into sight. Capture the rule breakers first, then we will finish the quest. Harry used a thumbs up and turned to his mum. Gotta go, mum. Talk to you later. Say hey to Rose for me. The mirror faded. Erza and Harry leapt off the boat, the latter sighing in relief. God, I hate transportation. Erza cracked a brief smile. Yes. I have noticed you and Natsu having that problem. They wandered over to where they had seen a tidal wave wash ashore. Damn. I knew that girl would fit in if she can overdo it like that. Not for long. Erza said darkly. Harry chuckled. I'm gonna go find Natsu. I can faintly smell him off that way. Very well. Come, Lucy. Take me to Grey. How she had tied them up that fast was beyond him, but he didn't question someone who had hundreds of armors and weapons in a personal space to re-equip into. She probably had some stuff like that. Who knows what kind of stuff she was into. He knew for a fact that one of her re-equips was a high school swim outfit. One piece and all. Harry came to a temple with a giant hole inside. He leapt down and stared up at a giant demon encased in ice. Someone cast an iced shell. Ouch. He was also concerned by the state of the ice. Someone was clearly using a moon drip to melt it. Then a tremor sounded and the temple tilted. I see. tilting the temple so the moon can't reach it. Someone is starting to use his brain. Aika laughed and grabbed Harry. Come on Harry. I think there is a hole over there we can use. Bursting through the hole in the ground that looked like it had been melted, Harry growled. Gray was about to cast Iced Shell. Aika let him go and Harry booted him in the side of the face, sending him towards Natsu, who punched him in the face hard enough that he bounced off the ground. You're a moron, Gray. Using Iced Shell against this pansy? Leon growled and a giant swarm of birds flew towards him. Ice make eagles. Let's see who the real pansy is. His smirk fell though when every single bird he launched was consumed by the man. These are the most disgusting things I have ever eaten, and I have had Erza's cooking. Half-baked casting. Don't you know that ice make magic requires you to use both hands or you sacrifice quality for quantity? Natsu laughed. Oh, you're gonna get it now. This guy can just eat anything you throw at him. Harry was about to preform a wing attack when he felt Gray place a hand on his shoulder. No, let me take care of him. We have some unfinished business. Harry sighed and nodded. No iced shell though. Aika, make sure this idiot comes back to us please. Can do. Harry landed next to the demon again just as the ice began shattering and it let out a terrifying roar. He just had to laugh as Natsu decked the short guy that oddly smelled like a female. Then he and Natsu had to deck Gray, again, because he tried to seal Deliora in an iced shell again. Stand back, Gray. Any ice chunk that hadn't been reduced to water flew into Harry's mouth as he inhaled. Gray and Leon watched stunned as Harry belted out Ice Dragon Roar, but what had them stunned was the faint silhouette of their master standing behind him. Leon growled, you killed my dream. How am I supposed to surpass her now? Lucy, Erza, Aika, and Happy entered the cavern. A female voice sounded that only two recognized, by dreaming a new dream. Leon, you should thank these fairy tale members. Everyone turned to see Harry standing, but his typical emerald green eyes that they had all gotten used to was gone. They have freed you from your darkness, in a way, that I never could. I'm sure if you were to work with your friends, and together get strong, you'd find that you have surpassed me long ago. Leon growled and shoved him. He wasn't sure yet. How can I surpass you if you're dead? Rubbed the head she was currently inhabiting. Damn. If I was in my own body you wouldn't have been able to knock me down. Center of gravity is lower in this body. To answer your question, Leon, is to aim for someone stronger. I may have been good, but I sure as hell ain't the best ice mage around. Hell, this body I'm in is stronger and has more potential than I ever had. Let go of that darkness and find a reason to become stronger. That is why I am proud of you, Gray. Despite your guilt at my death, you have persevered. You've grown into a fine young man. Just one who has a bad habit of stripping. Gray grunted. Yay. Who gave me that habit? He was sent flying back from a punch. Don't you blame that on me. You're the one who does it. She saw Gray embedded in the wall. This body is physically stronger than mine. She smiled at her precious students. Don't feel sorry for me, Gray, Leon. I left behind a legacy in you too. Surpass me, and become the best masters for ice maker magic, and one day, we can watch over the next generation together. They watched as Harry's demeanor shifted, and his emerald eyes returned. Whoa, head rush. What happened? Erza chuckled slightly. Nothing, Harry, come on, let's go. For the next week Team Natsu all partied. He and Erza combined their magic to destroy the film that had formed over the island from the moon drip. They even made friends with Lion's friends. Sherry was quite memorable. She kept going on about love. But all fun things come to an end and the village elder handed Harry the reward money and a gate key. I know not of the other mage that came officially to help us, so I can trust you to give him or her their share, yes? Harry grinned. Of course. Erza and I have done a few missions together. We got the system down to a T. Harry grabbed Natsu, who was trying to sneak away from the glare that Erza was giving him. Anyway. Thanks for the fun, but Erza and I have to get these four back to the guild. They're in trouble. A few feet later he handed Erza her share. Ah. Thank you. What about our share? We did all the work, Natsu yelled. Erza was back to glaring. Have you already forgotten? You stole an S-class request. You are not S-class, so you broke guild rules. Your share was given up. Messed up, so he turned his attention back to Harry, who had created a flower with his magic. How'd you do that? You've never had that much control of your magic before. Harry clenched his fist and the rose shattered and vanished. I'm not sure. After eating all that ice around the demon, it's like I have knowledge I may need your help learning to control this mate magic. It is a lot more precise than Dragon Slayers. Sure man. But we should probably hold off any training for after Master punishes me. I may now be around for that. Erza huffed. Anyway, what else did the Elder give you? Harry pulled out a golden key. This gate key. Do we have any celestial wizards in the guild, Erza? Lucis' eyes widened. Erza hummed as they ascended. The plank to the pirate ship dropped to let them aboard. Well, there is Lucy. But I don't know if she will be around much longer. Harry shrugged. Then I'll just toss it. He threw it over his shoulder. He smirked to Erza as she nodded, signifying his aim was proper, and the key landed right in her hand. After the hell that was a boat ride, followed by a train ride, Harry and Natsu were only standing by leaning on each other. Natsu's lasted longer, but his was more severe than Harry's. Harry figured that the magic he inherited from his parents in his birth world played a part in healing him faster like that. Harry sat down and Mira slid him a strawberry smoothie. They always helped soothe his travel sickness problems, not to mention Mira could cook food and mix drinks that would have people falling all over her. Though boys already did that, she was a very attractive girl. He watched in amusement as Natsu activated an ancient spell from a poster that he had seen in the master's office a few times. Gray was now in Lucis' body, and vice versa. Loke and Natsu changed, and Erza and Happy. That one was the most entertaining because of how strong Erza was magically. What the hell happened? Loke, or Natsu, shouted. Harry smirked. It's an ancient spell you just used, Natsu. I think it is called Changeling? It switches your bodies and magics. Which is why Loke is drooling fire and Lucy is an ice machine. Neither know how to use your type of magic, both being holder-type mages, meaning they don't have the knowledge to hold back those traits. Well said, my boy. That is indeed the case. I was so looking forward to punishing you all too. Oh well, you did it to yourselves. Master Makarov entered the guild. Master, surely you can reverse it? Happy, Erza, pleaded. It's a very old spell, so it stands to reason that I don't. No. The switched people all face vaulted. Oh. If memory serves, this spell becomes permanent after 30 minutes. That sent them into a panic. Harry openly laughed. Hey, the only ones that should totally be afraid is. Happy used a requip and Erza's body was in a high school swim outfit. Macau, Wakaba, and Elfman seemed highly excited about that. Is the girls. What? Gray, Lucy, asked. Harry smirked. Well, as Happy just demonstrated, he doesn't know how to use Erza's magic properly. One wrong move and we all see something that she doesn't want us to see. You're worse off though, Lucy. Gray subconsciously strips all the time. Only difference now is a body that is female. Within a few seconds he was already doing it. The same three seemed highly excited again. Makarov chuckled, having seen that Harry had seen through this punishment quite easily, and still antagonized them. After a while Levy activated the spell again and managed to get Gray and Lucy back to their proper bodies, but ended up changing Elfman and Kana, and Master and Mira. Harry too ended up changed with Laxus by accident. He didn't like that. While he could control Laxus's Dragon Slayer magic, his wasn't a natural thing. It was born from a lacrima, one that was only meant for Dragon Slayers, meaning it was messing with his mood. After a few hours of Master laughing and happily saying he was fine with the switch, Harry figured he would be, until Myra's time of the month came, but he didn't let it go on that long and ended up switching them back. After that he spent a few weeks working with Mira organizing the library, at least until Lucy came and Mira told her about the days when Natsu had first found Happy. He and Lasana had ensured he hatched from his egg, just like he had done with Aika. Mira looked sad when talking about her little sister, so he just took her hand and smiled. Then Mira ran off to help the Master and Lucy smiled at the picture. That must be Lisana. Weird, how come I haven't met her yet? Harry chuckled softly, because she died, Lucy. She isn't around anymore to meet. Oh, sorry, she must be sad talking about her. Harry shrugged. Well, yay. But she isn't as bad as before. She's moving on. Lucy grinned and leapt up. I wonder if Natsu and Happy are getting along again. Only one way to find out. She ran out of the guild. Harry smiled fondly at those days. Lisana was like a stabilizer to the guild. At least they managed to pull together and continue on. He picked up the fallen books and the like and got back to organizing the library. Hey. Aika floated down. Hey Aika. What's going on? I am hungry, she said, crossing her arms over her silver dress that had a pink bow tied around her waist. Harry chuckled. All right. Let's go get something to eat. I'm sure we have some ingredients for tuna salad. He put the last book back and they took off together. To be continued. Yes, Gray took off with Natsu and Lucy in this one. Chapter 5. Natsu, Happy, Lucy, and Gray were all heading back to the guild after a long mission. Haha. Was that a great mission, huh guys? Too bad Harry was on a request. He didn't get to see how awesome I was. The client seemed to think so, Happy said, floating above their heads. Gray sighed. Face it, you guys are lucky I decided to come along. We're lucky that you begged to come along. How do you figure? Natsu growled. Because you were about as helpful as one of Erza's suitcases. Natsu slammed his head into Gray. You better watch your mouth or I'll pack you like one of Erza's suitcases, he shouted out. That doesn't even make any sense. Erza stepped in and shoved their heads apart. That's enough, boys. Now, let's get along and get dressed. Gray looked down and cried out, for crying out loud, why does this keep happening? Happy called out, bit of advice, Gray, don't go picking fights in your underwear. Lucy sighed and spoke nervously, can I ask a question? Natsu looked up, yeah, what's up? This was originally supposed to be a solo mission, the reward is only 500 jewel, why'd you tag along? Oh come on. Isn't it obvious, Lucy? Lucy blinked, no, I don't think so. We're Fairy Tale's strongest team, so we gotta watch after each other and stick together. He gave her a thumbs up. Lucy blinked and tilted her head, but Harry took a solo job. No Lucy, Harry had a request. It's different. A request is when a client specifically asks for a certain wizard, it usually only happens when you're in S-class. Remember that horn Erza had when you first met her? Lucy nodded, that was a request. The client specifically asked for her, like they asked for Harry this time. Something about a blizzard ravaging a port town. Only the most confident people take others on a request since they're usually bad, Gray explained. Erza nodded, indeed. Although sometimes it is a kid who wants the mage to perform at a party. Harry gets the most of those, he is quite good with children. Lucy nodded, it made sense. As they continued walking along, when do you think you'll get back? Her question went unanswered as they spotted the guild hall. It had metal poles sticking out of the walls in all directions. Our guild, what happened to our guild? Natsu had a dark look on his face. Who would do such a thing? Erza asked. It was Phantom Lord, Mira said from behind them. Natsu's face got darker. Phantom did this? There was nothing we could have done. They followed her into the basement. They CTHE night when everyone already went home. Reaching the basement, a clearly drunk Makarov raised a hand. Yo, what's up kids? Sorry we weren't here sooner, Erza said. Why are you all standing around? Natsu growled. Master, do you understand the gravity of the situation? Erza asked. It's not the end of the world. This attack just goes to show how cowardly those kids in Phantom are. He took a big swig of beer. Natsu punched the wall. We can't take this lying down, Gramps. We should be planning on how to get back at those Phantom jerks. I'm not talking about this anymore. We'll handle job requests down here until the hall is fixed. We can't be worried about job requests as if nothing happened. Natsu. That's enough. He stretched his hand and spanked Lucy. And you spanked me because. Mira looked annoyed. Hands to yourself, master. Makarov laughed and leapt up. Where you going? Oh, keep your shirts on. I gotta go take a leak. He told them, running off. If the master thinks this is best, then we should abide by his wishes, Erza said. This hurts the master just as much as the rest of us, Mira said. But we are already on thin ice with the Magic Council. Natsu just scoffed but did not say anything. Later that night, Lucy was on her way home with Plu. I knew that rivalries between guilds could get intense, but I didn't think they would attack each other. She smiled in exasperation. And they have a reputation of being just as crazy as Fairy Tale. I almost joined them, but I'm happy with Fairy Tale. She walked up the steps to her apartment. They're like family. She opened the door to her room. The hell, she shouted. Sitting on her floor was Natsu and Happy with Erza and Gray at the table. "Oh hey Lucy," Gray said. "What are you doing in my house?" She yelled. She tossed her suitcase into Natsu's face. "Safety in numbers," Gray said. Lucy looked on in confusion. "Mira recommend we group up as Phantom Lord is most likely still in town," Erza told her, explaining the situation. "They most likely know where we live, so we should spend the night together," Gray added. "You are a beautiful teenage girl, so I didn't feel comfortable leaving you alone with these two, so I decided to stay here as well because I wouldn't be able to rest easy knowing you would share a room," Erza said, drinking tea she got from God knows where. Natsu just shouted, "There's no time for rest, but why do we have to be in my house?" she complained before seeing Happy and Plu going through her stuff. "Hey, look at this underwear, Erza," Happy said, holding up a pair of sexy underwear for her to see. Plu had found a stash of candy Lucy hid and stuck a sucker in his mouth. "Hey Plu, you find something to eat? Give it here, I'm starving," Natsu said. "You really wear such a thing, Lucy?" Erza asked, scandalized. "Could you guys just shut up? I'm trying to sleep," Gray ordered, laying out on her bed in his underwear. "You guys are making yourself too comfortable," Lucy shouted in annoyance. "You're right, Natsu, Gray, bath time," Erza ordered while Lucy sighed. That was not what she meant. "I don't wanna, I just got comfortable," Gray objected before Erza grabbed him. "Come now boys. Do we have to take a bath together like when we were kids? I'm sure I could convince Harry to join us when he gets back." "What kinda relationship do they have?" Lucy asked. "They're the strongest team. -1, but still the strongest," Happy said around a fish. "So why can't we go to war with Phantom Lord?" she asked. Fairy Tail didn't seem like the type for ignoring an attack on them. "Because the old man is scared we can't take them," Natsu shouted. "That's not it," Gray disagreed. "The problem is that we would destroy each other." "Destroy each other? But I thought Fairy Tail was the most powerful guild around?" "We are, but they are a close second. Their leader Jose is one of the 10 wizard saints like Makarov." Lucy's eyes widened in realization. Supposedly one of the 10 wizard saints could level a city in one go with little effort. A war between two of them would be incredibly destructive. Then there is Elemental 4 and Black Steel Gajeel, the Iron Dragon Slayer. All of them on par with an S-class wizard. "Yes, and that is why we cannot go to war with them," Erza said, stepping out of the bathroom drying her hair. That night as Lucy went to bed she felt uneasy because something told her this was just the beginning. The next morning the entire guild was standing in the park shaking with barely controlled rage because on the large tree in the middle of town was Team Shadow Gear, Levi, Jet and Droy with the guild mark of Phantom Lord painted on Levi's skin. "Phantom Lord." Natsu growled, fist clenched in rage. Suddenly everyone started to clear a path as the guild master made his way to the tree. Unlike usual when he was dressed in his little jester costume, he was dressed in his uniform of the wizard saints with his walking stick. "I can tolerate a lot of things. Our guild hall being destroyed, mocking us out loud, but when you attack my children, you have crossed a line, Jose. If it's war you want, it is war you will get." Makarov roared in rage, crushing his staff while his magical power flared, encasing him in a golden glow. "Did you hear what Gajeel did to those fairy asses?" one member of Phantom Lord asked a buddy. "Yeah, we should go and have some fun too. Can't let him have all the foo." He was cut off by the guild door being blasted off its hinges and slamming into them. "Fairy Tail has arrived," Makarov shouted, leading the charge. "Attack." He ordered the guild members charging forward to fight with the members of Phantom Lord answering in kind. "Fire dragons roar," Natsu called out, blasting dozens of Phantom Lord members aside. "Take them down," called a member of Phantom Lord, charging up a magical blast. However, to their surprise, instead of block or dodging the spell, Natsu opened his mouth and ate most of the magic. "I'm all fired up," Natsu called, punching his fists together. He ate the magic, but that means he's a dragon slayer. Natsu smirked. Now who wants to play with fire? With that he started to obliterate the enemies. While that was going on, the members of Fairy Tail were having fun of their own. "Purple net," called Macau, trapping several wizards with his fire. "Wakaba now." On it. Taking a drag of his pipe he exhaled. "Smoke rush." And the smoke formed several fists which knock out the Phantom members. "Guns magic." "Spark shot." Call Alzak, shooting down everyone in sight. "Die." roared a member of Phantom Lord coming up behind him. Bang! Nice shot, Biska, complimented Alzak. Getting a little rusty there, Al, she joked before taking aim. Locked on target homing shot, she called, firing her bullet curving around to take out as many members of Phantom Lord as possible. Get the old man. Take him down, cried several Phantom Lord members attacking Makarov. When his opened his eyes and in a flash of gold the short old man was gone. In his place was a giant. Makarov roared in rage, crushing a member of Phantom Lord under his hand. Monster! Shouted one fearful member of Phantom Lord. And you dared to lay your hands on this monster's children? He roared in rage. Are you foolish enough to think human laws will protect you from my wrath? I thought Fairy Tale was a bunch wimps. They're so powerful, quaked one member of Phantom Lord as they saw Fairy Tale tear through them like paper. Jose! Show yourself! Makarov called out, hoping that the coward would face him. Lucy sighed as she was walking back to the guild with groceries. I can't believe they all left without me. Though given the condition of Levy and her team, I guess someone had to look after them. Suddenly it started to rain very heavily. Drip drip drop. Lucy looked up and saw a blue-haired woman walking the opposite way she was going. Who are you? Drip drip drop. Juvia is the rain woman. Where she goes the rain always follows. Lucy scowled. Well, take the rain with you when you go. Boyoyoyo. Now Juvia. I do believe that this girl I rose out of the ground. Of course, monsieur. Waterlock. A ball of water surrounded Lucy and she slowly lost consciousness, accidentally dropping her keys in the street. Erza, called Makarov, drawing her attention. I'll leave the rabble to you, he told her, batting aside another lackey as he walked up the stairs. Yes, sir. Jose must be lurking on the top floor, Makarov muttered. When I find him there will be hell to pay. Walking up to the magically reinforced door, he tore it down like it was not even there. Gajeel smirked, seeing their big gun disappear. Looks like it was time for him to play. He jumped down, crushing the guild bar. Is that? It's gotta be. It seems Gajeel has finally joined the fight. It's the Iron Dragon Slayer, Black Steel Gajeel, Erza stated, suddenly on guard before they were all small fries. This was one of their big guns. You attacked Levi, roared Nab, jumping up hoping to take him down by surprise. Gajeel batted him aside without looking, turning his arm into an iron rod, smashing him into the ground, hitting several of his own guildmates. Nab, called Loki. What did he just take out his own guildmates in his attack? Gray asked in disbelief. Gajeel just chuckled. Show me what you've got, he challenged, unless you're too scared to face the great Iron Dragon Slayer. Too scared? Roared Elfman, attacking, changing his arm in the process. A real man is not afraid of anything. Gajeel just chuckled, blocking the attack with his arm. You're Elfman, right? He asked before lashing out with several punches that Elfman dodged before lashing with a kick, showing that his arms were not the only thing he could turn into iron. Elfman caught the kick with some effort. Not bad, complimented Gajeel. But let's see how you handle this, to Elfman's surprise. Several more iron rods shot out of his leg in all directions, but instead of attacking him they attacked his own guildmates. You attack your own men? Elfman asked in shock. Gajeel smirked. That's because I knew it would distract you, he told Elfman, throwing his right arm forward, punching Elfman across the room. Natsu jumped in, using Elfman as a springboard, much to his chagrin. Gajeel, he roared, punching him into the bar. The Iron Dragon Slayer went flying. Let's see who's better, iron or fire. Gajeel just smirked. I was hoping the Ice Dragon Slayer would show up. Guess I'll just have to convince him to come out by beating you. Makarov burst into the room, back in his regular form. Jose, why have you attacked one of my children? Ah, Makarov, it's been a while. That guild master meeting a few years ago, was it? I didn't come here to shoot the breeze, Jose. His fist slammed into the wall straight through him, a hologram. I knew you'd be too cowardly to face me head on. It's not cowardice, Makarov. I merely wanted to avoid a fight between two wizard saints. Besides, we have what we wanted. Makarov started as an unconscious and bound Lucy appeared at his feet. Lucy? Why would you want her? Oh, I'm surprised that you don't know who one of your members are. Isn't that right, Miss Hartfelia? Makarov never got the chance to speak up because a man snuck up behind him, weeping his eyes out. So sad. In a flash of light Makarov had green skin and fell through the floor. The entire hall froze when a crash sounded, and in the crater was Makarov, with green skin. Attack. It seems with Makarov out of the way, the members of Phantom Lord got their second wind. Don't get cocky, yelled Natsu, blasting several of them away. However, despite the fact the more powerful members of Fairy Tail were doing fine, the normal members were losing. Erza saw this and made the tough choice. Everyone fall back, retreat. What, no way. Natsu responded immediately. Real men don't retreat. Elfman objected. I can still fight, answered Mako, hanging off Kana, hurt from taking an attack for her. Retreat. That is an order. With great reluctance the guild backed out of Phantom Lord's headquarters. It's over already. Gajeel sighed in disappointment, hanging from the rafters. I should have known those fairy wimps would turn tail and run. Retreating is so sad, cried Arya. Arya, I see you're just as depressed as ever, Gajeel said, jumping up next to him. But nice job on the old man. I just followed Master Jose's orders, he said modestly before crying, but thank you. Do you have to cry all the time? Gajeel sighed. So what happened with that Lucy girl, or whatever her name was? Natsu looked up at the mention of Lucy, his amazing hearing catching every word. She has been captured. She is being held in a gloomy cell at headquarters. So much for giving her a warm welcome, huh? Gajeel laughed. No way, Natsu whispered. What is it? Happy asked, turning his attention away from the battle raging around him. Gajeel. Natsu roared. We'll fight another day, salamander. Gajeel laughed as he faded out. Everyone out now. No way, objected Natsu, preparing another spell. Erza put a hand on his. Please, she begged. She knew if the more powerful members like Grey and Elfman and the rest refused to leave, the other members of Fairy Tail would stay as well. If Harry were here she may consider staying, but that was not the case right now. Natsu visibly deflated and nodded. Running out the door, Natsu growled, I'm coming, Lucy. Harry smiled as the blizzard faded and the sun made a show. That's more like it. Oh, thank you, sir, the mayor of the town said. Harry just smiled. It's not a problem. His communication lacrima heated up. Hello. Mira, what's wrong? You have to help Harry. Phantom attacked several times. The master is badly injured. We need you. Harry scowled. He never liked Phantom Lord. They always thought they were so superior. I'm on the way, Mira. Nobody messed with his family. Nobody. Mira smiled. Well, Laxus was an ass, but Harry says he's on the way. Natsu smirked as he pounded his fist to his palm, fire emitting from his fist. I'll try to leave some for him. I'll be back. I've got somebody to save. He ran off from the group, heading back to the guild. Sorry for the huge gap between the chapters in this one. I just lost a lot of inspiration for writing. Chapter 6. Lucy groaned as she woke up. She was in a nasty cell tied up. Where am I? The door opened and in walked a man with purple lipstick. So you're finally awake? Who are you? I am the guild master of Phantom Lord Jose. Lucy gulped. Why are you attacking us? Us? Oh, you mean Fairy Tail. My dear, we are only doing a job we are paid for. Your father hired us to get you back to him. Lucy scowled. No, he would never have even noticed I left. I'm just surprised someone from such a high-class family would lower herself to slumming it with those fairy tale flies. Now, if you behave, I have a refurbished suite with your name all over it. I'd rather die. Lucy growled. All right, you'll stay here then. He turned to leave. Just one thing. Can I go to that bathroom? She wiggled around. Jose laughed. You don't honestly think I'd fall for that old trick? Lucy began sweating. No, seriously, I have to go. Jose smirked and conjured a bucket. Very well, here you go. Shit. Well, maybe I can play on his gentleman's side, Lucy thought. She stood and reached towards her skirt. Jose was stunned as the girl began reaching under her skirt. What the hell? She is actually doing it. With a cough he turned around. Well, since I'm a gentleman, I'll turn around and let you have privacy. Lucy smirked and brought her foot between his legs as hard as she could. Running to the window she froze. She was in a massive tower. Jose stood up shakily. Too bad, dear. I forgot one thing. This is the highest point in all of Phantom. Luku saw a flash of pink and gulped. Turning around she closed her eyes and leaned back, her foot coming into contact with the wizard saint's crotch again as she fell out of the window. "I know you're here, Natsu." Sure enough, just before she hit the ground, Natsu caught her. They landed with his head in her chest, but she would let it slide, this one WN from being the one who caused Fairy Tail all this pain. Jose began blowing purple. "Fairy Tail will break," he shouted as his anger caused his magic to surge. "Guys, outside there is something coming," Alzak shouted, kicking the door open. As he said that, minor tremor shook the ground before another large one followed. Rushing outside, they saw exactly what was attacking. "What the hell is that?" Natsu asked, running outside feeling a bit fearful about it. "It's a guild hall with enormous legs," Happy shouted. "Is it Phantom Lord?" Loki asked. Jose smirked upon seeing the Fairy Tail Guild Hall. "Fire the Jupiter cannon." Outside the Phantom Lord Guild, the front wall lowered to reveal a massive cannon. As darkness swirled around the edge of the cannon, Erza ran out of the guild hall clad in only a towel. "Everyone down now," she ordered before re-equipping into a large armor that looked more like a wall than an armor. "That's her adamantine armor," Happy shouted. "Is going to try and block the shot?" Biska asked in disbelief. "Is she crazy? That will kill her," Loki shouted. "Erza, get out of there," he told her in concern for her safety. "I can't do that," she declared. "If I do, you will all die, and I will not let that happen." Before anything else could be said, the cannon fired. However, as the blast came towards them, the temperature dropped several degrees as water swirled and froze. The water formed a U-bend in front of the guild and redirected the blast right back down the cannon's barrel. Harry Potter rising from the waves on a pillar of ice. "Harry," Erza said happily. The rest of the guild cheered. "Makarov has fallen. Any chance of victory has slipped through your fingers. Surrender Lucy Heartfilia and I will spare your guild." Jose called through the guild's speakers, though he hadn't expected the Yuki of Fairy Tail to show. He may have to join the fight. "Not gonna happen," Al shouted. "Like any guild would hand over one of their own to monster like you," Biska shouted. Natsu shouted, "We'll kick your ass long before you can do anything to us." The other members of Fairy Tail started voicing similar opinions. Erza looked up with tears in her eyes. "We would never betray her." "Like that? You would have to kill us first." "Damn right." "Yeah, come and get her. We'll kick your asses. You can stop asking because we are taking every one of you jerks down," Natsu roared. "We will tear that walking garbage can down piece by piece if we have to," agreed Harry. "You've pissed me off, Jose. I'm coming for you." While all this was going on, Lucy was crying. Both out of shame for causing all this and happiness for the guild being willing to risk their lives to protect her. She was seriously thinking about giving herself up to protect those she cared for. "Lucy, come with me." Mirajane grabbed her hand and dragged her to Redis. "We have a safe house you have to hide." "No way. I won't leave you all to fight for me. That's our way. We protect our own." "Sorry, Lucy." He hand glowed and Lucy passed out. "Get her to safety, Redis." He drew a picture on his gut, and as his magic emerged, a carriage dragged by a purple boar emerged from the drawing. Mira turned back around. "I may not be strong enough to fight with the rest of you, but I can help to an extent." Her skin flashed and she was the spitting image of Lucy. "Harry, I believe you can lead us to victory in the Master's absence." Jose grit his teeth in anger. "You impudent brats, I'm going to give you 15 minutes to change your mind before I blow Fairy Tail off the map." As he said this, hundreds of shades emerged from the base and the guild transformed and began writing a giant magical circle. "That's the forbidden spell Abyss Break," Erza cried. "Hey Kana, this means that I only have 15 minutes to break that thing, right?" Natsu asked. "That's right, Natsu, better hurry." "Right, Happy, let's go," Natsu called, running towards the edge of the dock before jumping off, Happy catching him as he fell. "We can't let Natsu have all the fun, can we?" Harry asked with a smirk before shooting off into the air. Aika carrying him. Gray, Elfman and Erza following in suit. Harry began heading towards the guild master's room. Gray ran towards the Rain Woman's chambers, Juvia of the Ocean. Erza would take on Arya of the Great Wind. Elfman went for the Earth Mage, Sol of the Earth. All that left was Black Steel Gajeel. And Natsu encountered the Fire Mage as soon as they entered the wrecked Jupiter cannon room. "When you find him, kick his ass," Natsu told him without turning his attention away from his current opponent. The man seemed cocky about fighting him. With pleasure, he shouted, flying by into the upper levels. This is bad. That spell will wipe everyone off the map. Hurry guys. Mira said to herself as she looked out of the window. It is such a shame that such potential must be destroyed. Arya wept, preparing a spell. Don't talk about me like I'm already dead. Erza growled as she equipped her Wind Empress armor. Against a foe like this, what she wouldn't give to be a Wind Dragon Slayer. Winds of the heavens. Arya chanted. A cyclone of wind formed and launched itself at Erza. But to Arya's surprise, instead of trying to dodge, she just slashed her sword and the blast was sucked into the blade. You won't have such an easy time against my Wind Empress armor, Arya. You will pay for what you did to the master. She growled as she slashed her blade, sending a massive whirl of wind back towards the Wind Mage. That may be so, but Arya lifted his hands into the air and a massive wind built up. There are other ways to attack you. The pillars surrounding them lifted into the air and slammed down on Erza while one blocked her attack. Such a shame for her to die. Arya wept, turning around to go back to his post. At least until the rubble exploded and a blade of wind connected with his back, sending him face first towards the wall. Gah! Arya was sent flying away into a pillar. Standing there with her arm outstretched was Erza, her blade smoking. However, she did not come out of Arya's last attack unscathed. There was a large gash on her right arm and on her chest, and her armor was cracked in quite a few places. Don't underestimate me, Arya shouted, blasting the rubble away from him. His blindfold gone. I'm not an S-class mage for nothing. Vacuum incarceration. He called as a bubble of wind surrounded Erza, his eyes glowing with his power. You're finished, Titania, my. Vacuum incineration sucks all of the air out of the area of my spell, he said as Erza began to choke. Erza was gasping for air as she was thrown around by the wind. Then a memory came to her. Remember, Erza. Sometimes an opponent will try to take you down in a more indirect way. Especially a wind magic user. Wind magic is strong, but it lacks offensive power. There are two spells in particular that a wind user would resort to if they had no qualms about winning. Drain, which will drain you of your magic. And vacuum incarceration. This one would be more common. It would suck all the air around you up. Harry said as he sparred with Erza, freezing the floor and making her lose her footing. She would get a new prosthetic eye soon, but Harry had been training her to use her lack of sight to her advantage. Panting, Erza stood shakily. And how do I fight against something a sword can touch? Harry grinned. Use their methods against them. In this case here, I'm sure some armor has spikes that let you get your footing. In the case of those wind users, well, you have to remember, all wind is affected by temperature. Hot air rises, and cool air does not. It's the same with magic. Magic will change the air currents, so hot air will disperse it, and cool air will freeze it. Here, in case you ever need it. He handed her a glowing crystal. Erza gulped and grabbed the crystal she always carried around her neck, pushing some of her magic into it. The room was instantly covered in ice and Arya looked around amazed. What? His spell was unraveling and fading. As the spell faded, he couldn't dodge the sword slash that Ted as she knocked out Arya. Hey! Take that, demon girl. Harry's gift and knowledge saved me. Guess I owe him one now. She collapsed. The last thing she saw was a swirl of a white cloak. Mira gulped as she stepped outside. Memories of the past flowing through her. Her brother was up there, fighting for the guild. The least she could do would be to get a little more time. I'm right here, she called out in Lucis' voice. I'll give myself up if you spare everyone else. Jose smirked. Begone, imposter. I've known from the start that she wasn't here. He snapped his fingers as a green circle teleported the girl into the giant's hand. I will crush you slowly as you watch your guild fall. Mira began to scream. However, the temperature began to steadily drop, along with his smirk. So he comes. The door began to freeze. Natsu ran towards the man who blocked his way. You're going down. His keen eyes caught a twitch of the Mon's fingers, and suddenly he was punching himself in the face. Natsu. Why'd you punch yourself in the face? I didn't do it on purpose. My arm just went crazy. He tried to do the same thing, but his flame-coated fist slammed into his face again. Your attacks are useless against me. All fire is mine to control. He snapped his fingers. Blue fire. But to his surprise, the boy ate his attack. Whoa. That went down cold. Never had a fire quite like that. So, it's you. One of Fairy Tale's Dragon Slayer. It seems this fight will be interesting as neither of our magics will affect each other. How do you know that? My flame hasn't even touched you yet. He just smirked. Orange fire Natsu began to eat it, but the flames smell caused him to collapse. Like that? My orange fire is so nasty smelling even Gajeel is stunned by it in our spars. Natsu stood and growled, cheap shot. He raised his hands and a massive swirl of fire began forming. I told you it's useless. He twitched his fingers, but his eyes widened as the flames never moved. The entire room was covered in flame as Natsu punched the guy out of the building, smoke billowing behind him. Elfman stopped as he heard a chuckle behind him. A man in a brown suit rose from the ground. One of the element 4 He threw his jacket off. Monsieur Saul. He bowed. Elfman growled. I don't care. You're gonna tell me how to stop that spell. Beast arm. His arm became a black claw. Black bull. What's this? Only one arm. Then the rumors are true about you. You had a little sister Elfman scowled and took a swing at him. The man spoke French and sand swept up everywhere, followed by the ground exploding under him. Many years ago you attempted a full body takeover I apologize, but I scanned your memory when you so rudely stepped on me. Elfman growled. You shut up. He leapt up and changed his arm again, this time to a metal fist. Steel beast arm. Non. The ground rose up and Elfman froze mid-punch as an exact replica of his little sister appeared before him. You lost control of that takeover and had to bury poor little Lisanna in the cold hard ground. A mix of his voice and Lisanna's came from the puppet as it opened its eyes, one Soul's, the other Lisanna's. Isn't that right, big brother elf? Elfman growled in fury, his body encased in a purple glow. I can't let him get to me. I have to try that, he thought as his body began glowing. Non. You shouldn't try a full body takeover. Dozens of Lisanna rose from the ground and began begging him to stop and saying they were only trying to be helpful. Elfman's transformation receded and he collapsed panting. You really shouldn't attempt something you can't handle. You just end up wasting your magic power. Elfman growled. You're a coward, you know that? A real man would fight me, not use my memories against me. Oh, are you implying I'm not a real man? How rude. The statues of Lisanna faded and turned into a whirlwind of sand that blasted him back and exploded the wall behind him. Mira looked up and saw her brother standing there. Elfman. What are you doing there, Mira? How'd they get you? Oh, she's paying the price for trying to deceive Monsieur Jose. And now, she gets to watch you die. Elfman cried in pain as Saul began encasing him in stone, forcing him to watch the worst memory he had ever had. You are nothing but a murderer. You killed your little sister, and now you will be the cause of your big sister's demise. However, just before Elfman was totally encased in stone, he saw something, a tear running down her face. She's crying. He had promised alongside Harry all those years ago to never let her cry again. Why are you crying? Hyde body was encased in golden glow and his body changed into his beast soul form. Saul cried in pain as Elfman began beating on him. Elfman. That's enough, Elfman. Just as he was about to deal the final blow, his sister's words reached him and the purple glow faded from around him. Mira watched as her brother leapt towards her. He pried both of the fingers apart and lifted her up. I'm sorry, Mira. I promised I'd never attempt a full body takeover again. After what happened to Lisanna, I never thought I would too. But this is the only way I could protect you. His voice deep and held a hint of power to it. You have control this time. I think we both need to stop beating each other up over what happened to Lisanna. Elfman. You still have your big sister, and she's not going anywhere. Even if Harry finally realizes me, I'll always come home to you. Elfman began weeping. Big sis, don't worry, I'll beat some sense into his thick skull. Mira chuckled as Elfman returned to his base form. Turning, she frowned. It's not drawing the circle as fast as before. Of course. The Abyss Break is a forbidden spell comprised of the elements, earth, water, fire, and air. To stop this thing we have to beat the element 4. Gray crawled out of the window and looked around curiously. What the hell? When did this rain start? Drip drip drop. Juvia is the rain woman of Phantom Lord. Where she goes the rain follows. Gray turned and saw a blue-haired woman carrying a pink umbrella. The only article on her that wasn't blue or white. You must be one of the element 4. He placed his hands together only to flatter as the girl's face turned red and she turned. Well, I give up. Gray scoffed and looked up. Has the rain gotten heavier? Man, it's so gloomy. Juvia's face hardened and a jet of boiling water was sent at Gray. You're not any different than the others. Gray blocked with a shield that barely held and he growled. Ice make spears. Several spears went right through her body, but to his astonishment her body seemed to repair itself. Juvia's body is made completely out of water. Your attacks won't work against me. She shot another scalding shot at him, but Gray cried out and the water froze, encasing her as well. Juvia's face turned red. Juvia should be mad that you froze her water, but... Gray sighed and opened his eyes and began freaking out. He had accidentally groped the girl's chest when he froze the water. Sorry. He yanked his hand away and the ice collapsed. Waterlock. Gray was encased in water and he growled, but it hit him. Juvia said her whole body was water. Harry had taught him a few tricks back in the day. Ice is a beautiful element, Gray. It is capable of doing so much. However, there are those who would take that and apply it to their bodies. I once ran into a man who turned his skin to physical stone. Naturally it gives them a huge advantage against many enemies. But it also is a huge weakness as well. When I beat that guy down I froze the stone so much that a single punch shattered his arm. Remember, Gray, even with fire, anything can be frozen with the right ice and force. Gray gulped and focused all of his magic he could and began steaming in the water. Ice slowly spread throughout the ice, and... Juvia's eyes widened as her hand began to harden. Impossible, he is freezing the rain, which is freezing my body. I've never met someone who could counter my water body's advantage. Juvia smiled as the ice burst in. The last thing she saw was Gray standing there shirtless. Gray. Mira called as she ran towards her friend. Mira, what are you doing here? No time now, we have to beat the element 4 to stop the abyss break. Elfman looked towards the woman who was knocked out not far from them. It seems you beat the water woman. Why does she have that creepy smile on her face? Beats me. Gray shrugged. We have beaten 3 of them by now. Gray said. I beat Juvia of the Great Sea. The only one left was Arya. But Erza was taking him on. Elfman took down Saul of the Great Earth with a full body takeover and Totemaru of the Great Flame was taken out by Natsu. Mira continued. That just leaves Arya of the Great Sky. Elfman finished. That cowardly bastard that attacked the master. We might not be in time to stop it though. Look. Mira pointed down at the circle which glowed a bright yellow. However, Mira noticed the glow was fading. Apparently Erza had beaten Arya. Oh crap, is that thing done? We are so boned. Stay calm, everyone. Panicking will not help anyone, Kana ordered. But privately she wondered if they were right. A sudden explosion rocked the mobile guild. Man, what is that matchstick up to? That wasn't Natsu. Mira told Gray with a smile. That was Harry. And judging by the magic I am feeling, he is taking on Jose, like a real man. But how can Harry do that? No offense, but he is not powerful enough for Jose. Gray asked. He has known Harry for years and he knew that Harry was not powerful enough to beat someone like that. He tended to hold back far too much. He was probably Fairy Tail's weakest S-class. Mira smiled. You forget Gray. He beat Laxus, and he is quite powerful. It just takes a lot to get him angry enough to go all out. He tends to hold back, plus, he has yet to reveal a power he obtained when on a quest all those years ago with me. The door burst open and Harry growled, Jose. Ice crept out of him, freezing everything around him. A light blue glow encasing his body. Ah. The Yuki of Fairy Tail. I must admit, I am curious about the power Makarov says hides deep within you. A purple glow formed around him. Gajeel. I will handle this insect. You guard the girl. TCH. Fine, I can hear Salamander on his way anyway, and I got a score to settle with him. He dragged the blonde away by her hair. Erza. Natsu ran up to his red-headed friend. Are you okay? You're pretty beat up. Erza's eyes focused on Natsu, somehow instinctively knowing she could awaken the inner power of both dragon slayers. Listen to me. You have to avenge the master. I know you can do it. Show me that you can surpass me, she demanded. A massive flame erupted and Erza smirked. With both Natsu and Harry not holding back, victory would be theirs. Hey. Harry chuckled as Jose sent a black wave to him. Fine Erza. No holding back today. A massive wave of power erupted from Harry and Jose's eyes widened. The magic formed a massive blue dragon. A huge roar erupted from his mouth, blasting a hole into the roof of the guild hall that missed him by mere inches. Voldemort smirked as he observed the great hall through Quirrell's eyes. Tonight he would go through the trials and get the Philosopher's Stone. Today would be the last day he would have to deal with petty children and the hormonal problems they had. He couldn't stand for another male coming to him and asking him why they felt certain ways about girls. A sharp pain ran through Quirrell's chest and Voldemort was suddenly standing in a different hall, seeing a man sneering at him. Come Harry Potter. Show me why Makarov holds you in such high regards. The great hall froze as Quirrell began to scream in agony, and his magic forced its way out of his body, forming a screen. Everyone watched as the images settled and they all quieted down at the near-familiar face of their savior, who was supposed to show up this year. Harry ran at Jose, his fist steaming from the cold his skin emitted. Ice Dragon Claw. A stream of blue energy erupted from his fist as he punched Jose in the gut, ice forming on the spot where he hit. You want more, Jose? Unlike the pathetic people you keep under you, death magic has never really affected me. Jose began throwing his magic at him, which Harry merely bat away with his ice-encased hands that became claws. You think you're all-powerful. Allow me to show you the might of a wizard saint. Dark figures rose from the floor and began slashing at him. A wave of his claw and the creatures froze in place and he charged at the wizard saint, both throwing punches and spells like nobody's business. As Harry began to unleash his secret art, he felt a sharp pain in his forehead and collapsed, seeing a familiar golden glow for a second. Harry woke up to the sounds of fight. For a brief moment he forgot where he was and thought the guild was just in the middle of another brawl. He suddenly sat up. Phantom! He shouted. Ow! He winced. Something had been trying to drain his magic on a massive scale. He held his head before feeling a warm light overcome him. I recognize this feeling, he thought. Master, he exclaimed, standing up to see several other members of Fairy Tale picking themselves up as well. Get out of here, Makarov ordered, his hands alight with magical power. But master, no, he is right, we would only get in the way, Erza admitted, cursing herself for being so weak, her and everyone else following him in. But nothing. Leave, Makarov ordered. Damn it, fine. Harry shot off into the air, flying through one of the broken windows. While Ica grabbed Mira, who was too weak to stand. As Harry made his way off the wreck of the Phantom Lord Guild Hall, a burst of magic knocked him out of the sky. Shit. The old man isn't holding back, he moaned, rubbing his head as he landed on the ground. Holy crap. They are really going at it, huh? Another blast of magic caused a massive wave the size of the fortress to go out in all directions. Is this the true power of a wizard saint? Was Jose just holding back on me this much? He asked himself as another explosion rocked the building. While above, the mobile guild storm had built up from sheer magical power before a massive surge of shade magic dispelled the whole thing. Is it over? Harry asked himself when the quakes and tremors had stopped. But who won? I will give you to the count of 3, Jose, as per fairy tale tradition, Makarov told his fellow wizard saint. Surrender and kneel and I will spare your guild. Surrender. To you. 1. Your entire guild is a bunch of garbage trash that is unfit to be considered equal to Phantom Lord, Jose raved. 2. I am willing to do what you are not, Makarov. I am willing to kill. Death wave. 3. Fairy law. A flash of light obliterated the death wave and immersed everything with the light. The light spread to engulf all of Mongolia for a brief second, and in that second every member of Phantom Lord was disabled in an instant. So this is fairy law, Harry muttered, gazing at the light. The light that banishes the dark urg. Harry collapsed to the ground, holding his forehead as a scar emerged and black sludge gushing out of it. From that sludge a spectral being formed. I am Lord Voldemort, how dare you treat me like this? Your body is mine, boy. The spectre launched itself at the boy only to be incinerated by the sacred light of fairy law. No, I am Lord Voldemort, you can't do this to me. I am Lord Voldemort. I am. Lord Volde. Whatever remained of the spirit was destroyed by the light. The hell was that? Harry muttered before collapsing to the ground. Harry. screamed Mira, having seen both the spirit emerge from the scar and the light destroy it. The residents of the Great Hall watched in horror as Quirrell's body began smoking and glowing the same golden glow as the image. His body had been reduced to ashes and a black spirit rose from the remains, fleeing the hall wailing in pain. Damn that Potter boy. Even when he isn't here he interferes with me, he will pay. Dumbledore visibly sagged as the image faded. With Harry's Horcrux gone he could truly boing the rest. Will he be okay? Makarov asked with a frown on his face. How did he not notice the spirit within the boy? Yes, poor Lyuzica answered, grinding up some herbs to help with his fever. It seems whatever happened with the spirit has left him unharmed. If anything, he came out better than before. What do you mean? He lying unconscious on the bed and has fever? Ica yelled, worried about her friend. Yes, but he is healing at an unnatural rate, she told them, annoyed that they would question her area of expertise. It seems that the spirit weakened him physically and mentally. But now, without his body, which had gotten used to the constant weakness and adapted, is more powerful than ever. Having the advanced healing it forced itself to gain to survive without threat of possession. If I had to guess, I would even go as far to say that he is now immune, or at least resistant, to both mind magics and death magic. Immune to death magic? Makarov questioned in disbelief. Wherever that spirit came from, it was born of death magic. The constant fight against it gave him a built-up immunity. She saw Makarov frowning and looking down with his fists clenched. There was nothing you could do, Makarov. So stop blaming yourself. She smacked on the back of the head. But why couldn't I sense the spirit? He asked. I am one of the 10 wizard saints. I should have sensed such a malevolent spirit. It was the same reason it could not possess him, she said. It was powerful protection magic, extremely powerful. If I had to guess, it seems who have cast this may have been on their way to rediscovering Fairy Sphere. Fairy Sphere. But it is lost, the only one of the 3 great spells still known to us as Fairy Law, he said in disbelief. Yes, but like I said, on their way, not there yet, she sighed. It used love like Fairy Sphere. But unlike Fairy Sphere, it only protects one person, and also unlike Fairy Sphere, it requires a living sacrifice. What? Makarov shouted in outrage. A living sacrifice. Keep calm, you old geezer, she shouted, slapping him on the head. It has to be a willing one. Meaning just like that stupid guild of yours, some idiot foolishly put themselves in harm's way to protect him. It was not stupid. Makarov smiled. And it was a family member. Only those of his blood could so foolishly put everything on the line for the child. I've met his family, they would do something like that. Particularly his father and uncles. Chapter 7 Don't Own Fairy Tale or Harry Potter. I received a review the other day, bored peasant. He was asking if the pairings were confirmed. I'll admit I feel that Erza deserves better than pinning after Gajeel as she does in canon. I will admit I have considered changing the pairings to a Harry x Erza x Mira, but I've not confirmed it at all. So while I will admit that Erza is closer to Harry than anyone in Fairy Tale, she is not going to be with Harry yet. Not sure how I would work that out if I did anyway. Natsu roared in success as he lifted a massive pile of wood, only for it to collapse. Gray walked by with a single piece of wood. That's what you get for lifting that much at once, you moron. Natsu growled and burst out of the pile. What did you say, perv? Gray headbutted Natsu. You got a problem with it? Erza appeared and literally hammered both into the ground. Get back to work. Jet and Droy, who were so injured they couldn't help rebuild, gulped. Oh man, I wouldn't want to work for Erza. Droy nodded. Yay, but she is right. Even the master is helping. Rebuild. He looked up to the master, who had enlarged himself with his magic and was pounding the wood together. Gray looked up and frowned. No matter how much you look at it, it looks too big. Erza nodded. We figured that we should upgrade the Guildhall while we can. Natsu growled. I liked the way it was before. Mirajane walked over. Yay. We went over the plans with the master before we even started. See? She held up a badly drawn picture. Natsu looked confused. Which way is up? What kind of moron drew this? Gray asked. Mira smiled for a brief second, a single tear falling down her cheek, but before she could burst out crying, a boot made contact with Gray's face and sent him flying. You watch your damn mouth, Gray, Harry growled. He turned and smiled at her. It's a great drawing, Mira. Gray was just jealous he couldn't draw as well as you. Gray nodded woozily. Yay, he is right. I'm sorry, Mira. Harry was not one to screw with when it came to Mirajane, not since a week after Lysana died. Erza turned and smiled. You weren't supposed to be released from poor Lyuzica for a few weeks, Harry. Harry shrugged. I was going crazy just sitting there doing nothing. She told me I'm fine physically, but my magic needs time to recover. As long as I don't use too much magic at once I'll be fine, so I decided to come to help out. Mirajane smiled as Harry picked up the pile of wood that Natsu left behind and followed as Erza showed him where to put the wood. You've helped protect me since then, and even when you were just recovering from a spirit that was in your head your whole life. Ever since that day. Mirajane backed away in fear. Her sister had just died a week ago, but unlike her brother, she took it worse than anyone. She had problems with using her magic since then, which led to this situation. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go somewhere more private, a boy in a bandana said as he tried to grope her again as he did before. His two friends boxing her in and forcing her against a wall. All three of them advanced. Come on, babe. Dressed like that you have to enjoy this kind of thing. He pulled out a knife and cut one of the straps on her shirt. His fingers were encased in ice just an inch in front of her face. You know, even if she was a dragon, I was raised by a single mother. Because of that, I've developed a deep-rooted hatred for men who take advantage of women. All three of the unharmed people turned and the men gulped at the glowing green eyes that stared at them. Hey man. Beat it. This one is ours. A growl erupted from Harry. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but isn't that up to her? You guys cutting off her clothing like that tells me she isn't willing here. Why don't you beat it before I beat you so bad your parents will be broke from the hospital bills? The man who had his hand frozen growled. How about we do the same, huh? Our parents are rune knights. They taught us some magic. 3 blasts of magic exploded on him instantly. How'd you like that, punk? Hey, if that's the case I don't have to hold back. Mira is a dear friend of mine, you see. Ice spread out and covered the alley. Everyone but Mira began shivering. Her brother and I made a pact. You see. We both swore we wouldn't let her cry again. I don't plan on breaking that pact. A mist began emitting from the boy, and the guys could swear they saw it take the form of a dragon that was glaring at them. Mira watched as Harry beat every single one of her would-be rapists until they were just a pile of moaning bodies. Harry huffed and froze the pile for an added measure and turned to her. Come on, Mira. Let's go home. He held out his hand, which she took, and he swung her onto his back and leapt up to the roof. Thank you, Harry. She laid her head on his back and smiled. He smells so good, was her last thought as she began drifting off to sleep. Mira was broken out of her thoughts as Macau called for a drink. Since that day he had always paid special attention to what happened around her. He always seemed to be around when someone said or did something to hurt her feelings, more so than Elfman. It was why most nobody would mess with her, because Harry laid the beat down on anyone who hurt her, and they probably feared what would happen if her own magic returned in full force. Not many people could take on Satan's soul, much less her stronger forms. Harry. They both turned to see Team Natsu running up. Hey, guys. What's up? Lucy went home, Gray said. Harry sighed. I figured she would. What? Natsu demanded. You didn't stop her. Harry pried the hand off him. Of course she would go to confront her father. That whole war was started because her father paid off Phantom to get her back. She knows that her father would not stop. He would throw all his money at more and more guilds. It wouldn't stop until she confronted him. We have to go and bring her back though. We don't know what her dad would do to keep her there, Erza commented, somewhat calmed by Harry's words. He always was able to think things through like that. Harry nodded. If it will calm you guys down, let's go. Hey, wait. I want to come too. It'll be nice to get out every now and then, Mira called out. Harry smiled and held out his hand, just like all those years ago. Then let's go, Mira, together. Elfman. I'll be back. We're gonna go get our wayward fairy back, Mira called as she took his hand. Elfman looked up and nodded. Seeing Harry and Erza was going to be with his sister, he knew she was going to be in good hands. He wasn't worried. By the time they had gotten to the Hartfellia mansion, it was approaching dusk. They had found Lucy standing near a grave. Lucy, Natsu, Gray, and Happy ran, flew forward. Harry, Mira, Erza, and Aika calmly approached the girl. What are you guys doing here? Lucy asked, surprised. We came to save you, Natsu said. Harry shook his head. I told them that you would have had to eventually confront your father to prevent another war breaking out. And they wanted to make sure your father wouldn't keep you prisoner. A tear ran down Lucy's cheek, but only Natsu couldn't tell it was a tear of happiness, not sadness. Thank you all for coming for me. Lucy was quite surprised that Mirajane had come as well, though from what she had seen, since Harry was here, she shouldn't be. Harry looked up as Natsu ran up. Hey Harry. Before Loki left he gave us tickets for a resort. Want to come with us? Harry's smile faded. A few weeks ago Loki had attempted to leave the guild. But Lucy had discovered Loki was actually Leo, the lion spirit of the celestial world. He had been banned from returning through his gate because he didn't want his friend to be beaten by their old master and stayed on this world so she couldn't summon more. The girl ended up dying because she was far too stubborn to give in and tried to summon a second spirit even though she wasn't even close to strong enough for that. Lucy ended up saving him and surprising him because she summoned all of her spirits, and then proceeded to summon the Spirit King. He knew celestial spirit mages had to have tremendous magical reserves to summon the spirits, but Lucy pushed it to another level on that one. Sure Natsu. I'll pack my stuff up now. Harry smiled as he watched his friends play in the ocean. Gray and Erza were knocking a beach ball around, the flying cats were flying around playing tag, and somehow Lucy had convinced Natsu to go on a jet ski with her. He wasn't sure how that had happened, but the look on Natsu's face was priceless. Hey, Harry. Come on. Let's make it a full game. Gray called, smacking the volleyball towards him. Harry chuckled and joined in. You know, you are a mystery to me. Harry downed the last of his beer and turned to face a blue-haired man with a tattoo on his eye. So, should I call you Segrain, or Jelal, which one is the real you? The man's eyes widened and stared at the Slayer. You've known this whole time? Harry shrugged. You can't hide an astral projection from me, though I do wonder about the council. Jelal sneered and raised his hand, encased in his magic. Such a shame they'll never find out. The room began to drop in temperature and Harry chuckled. Oh the shame, too bad Erza has been pinning after you, she could do so much better. Lucy ran into the bar section of the casino. Ice encased the whole thing, that meant Harry or Gray. Gray. Wen shook the unconscious boy but freaked out when his body shattered. Don't worry Gray, I'll fix you. He is fine. A swirl of water erupted near the pile of ice and formed into a familiar blue-haired woman. You're from Phantom. She panicked. Formerly yes. Once that man attacked Gray I took him into my body to protect him. Though I do have to wonder about that other ice mage, he was fighting another man. He had snapped the guy's neck and the body vanished. Apparently, it was an astral projection. He went charging after them when a younger man came along with Titania and another carrying 2 cats. Lucy began sweating in nervousness. Harry usually only protected Mirajane, but she had worked with him enough to know he would stand in the way of anyone who hurt his friends. We have to find Natsu. Harry is still recovering from his fight with Jose. Gray's eyes widened as he remembered that too. He can't be that weak if he beat someone that was capable of an astral project though, that's not easy magic, Gray reasoned. Lucy shook her head. Don't forget Gray. Astral projection isn't practical for combat. For every projection you have active, your power is cut in half. They came into a room with a wrecked machine. Natsu laid out inside of the machine, his mouth smoking. After a second where Lucy honestly thought he was dead, Natsu leapt up, fire invading him. Hey man. Who shoots a guy in the mouth? Not cool. Lucy deadpanned at that, fairly sure that anybody else would be dead from getting shot in the mouth. Flame Brain, we have to go after them. They have Happy, Aika, and Erza, and Harry already charged after them. The machine Natsu was standing in melted from the heat he was emitting. That bastard better leave some for me. I got a score to settle with Blockhead. They chased after Natsu, who had the best nose and would be capable of following them. Harry growled as he chased after the boat taking Erza and the cats away, his every step freezing the water and allowing him to follow on foot. Pausing briefly he looked over the horizon and closed his eyes, one of his earliest memories coming to the forefront of his mind. Dragging up the times he had spent with his mother, both of them, he raised a hand. Expecto Patronum. His memories were of his Girth mother explaining and breaking down something called the Patronus charm, and how it could be used to send messages. A massive pure white dragon erupted from his hand. Harry blinked. It was his mother, Find anyone in the Council of Magic other than the one known as Segrian, or Jelal. Tell them that Jelal is manipulating the council with an astral projection. The dragon turned and flew off instantly. Turning back, he began running again. I'm coming, guys. Jelal smirked as he picked up the white king piece. I wasn't expecting him to go for the killing blow, but he had known it wasn't really me. Looking out the window, he saw a single figure running across the water. He knew the rest would follow shortly afterward. Come and show me what fairy tale is capable of. And I don't know how astral projections work in canon, but in mine, for every time you make one, it splits your magic in half. That is why Harry beat Jelal so easily. The projection that went after him was roughly a third of what he is truly capable of. And the only reason Harry went straight for the killing blow was that he knew that the Jelal he was fighting wasn't real. Chapter 8a. And so, I am thinking of adding the movies into this story, you know, if I can make it that long. But I need help tracking down the timeline they would fit into. I apologize for anyone who follows my other stories right now. I'm not gonna lie, I've had a few new ideas for stories, but don't want to follow through with them, so I've written them down for later viewing, so my attention hasn't been where it should be. I will get back to my other stories soon. I do have a major question though. I recall a time where Lucy had traveled back in time sometime after the GMG. I want your guys' opinions. Should I save her, or let her die like in canon? I do not own Harry Potter or Fairy Tale. What? Are you saying that it still exists? An elderly man asked Sagic Circle. But that is impossible. We destroyed everything related to the project. A woman standing next to him sighed and shook her head. When construction of the R system began, we quickly destroyed all 7 towers. However, it would appear that we missed an 8th one, not far from Akane Resort. A shorter old man sighed and stared at the magical orb that showed a completed tower. I'm not sure what's more concerning, the fact that the thing looks close to being done, or the fact that intelligence shows that the black magic cult is no longer within the tower. Another woman scowled. That's true. It says here that a man named Jelal is heading the project now. The entire council turned to the blue-haired man. Your twin brother? Jelal smirked a little and nodded. Unfortunately. A white object burst into the room and came to a halt in the center of the council meeting. The misty dragon turned towards a short older man, and to the amazement of everyone in the room it spoke. My name is Harry Potter. I am an S-class mage of fairy tale. Do not trust the one known as Segrain. He is an astral projection from Jelal, trying to manipulate the council to do his bidding. I and a few other mages of fairy tale are on site and ready to take the man down. The misty dragon faded and the elderly man smirked slightly. I can vouch for that boy. He is one of fairy tale's strongest, and one of the few with a head on his shoulders concerning collateral damage. I might wish to pick his brain about the magic he sent us through. So fascinating. The blue-haired man had a full-blown scowl on his face when all but Ultir turned to him, magical auras flaring. Thought you could trick us, Ultir stepped up beside him. You'll need your strength. With this falling apart, it all depends on you. Jelal nodded and his body faded into dust. I'm afraid I can't allow you to interfere with him. You too, Ultir. Such a shame. Jelal knocked the chessboard he had to the ground. Some kind of communication magic. The council is on high alert now. Harry sighed as he stepped onto the island. Everything was dying around them. This thing is sucking the magic out of everything around it. Forbidden magic. He growled. He wasn't sure what this tower did, but only the darkest spells sapped the life out of everything around it. The only piece of magic he had come across that was positive when involving sacrifice was whatever his uncle Remus had done the night the red-eyed man came and killed him, resulting in a thin membrane of magic surrounding his body. Master and Porliasica had said that the closest spell they had ever seen to it was the fairy sphere. One of the 3 sacred spells to fairy tale, ones he had studied extensively. You are correct. Harry whirled around and a blade of ice erupted from his hand. The man froze and raised an eyebrow. Very good control for a slayer. My name is Simon, an old friend of Erza's. Harry scowled. The same old friends that kidnapped her and brought her to the place she had been enslaved for years before she came to Fairy Tale? Simon's eyes widened and he stared intently at the man. She must trust you quite a bit to tell you that. The answer is yes. However, I am the only one who didn't fall for Jalal's act. I only played along because I knew you would follow us, and together we could take him down. Harry raised an eyebrow. Say I believe you. Jelal is the same person as Segrain. declared one of the 10 wizard saints. It won't be that easy, especially if Erza freezes up from the crush she had on him as a child. True, but between the Yuki, the salamander, the maker mage, and even the celestial mage of fairy tale we have a chance. Harry held up a hand and mist began erupting from his hand. Opening it showed the fairy tale symbol. Take this, it'll convince my friends you're on our side. Simon nodded and vanished in a black mist. You are one tough bastard to hunt down Yuki. Harry whirled around growling, sick of people sneaking up to him. His ice weapon shattered in surprise as he came face to face with black steel Gajeel. What are you doing here, Gajeel? He scoffed. What did I just say? I've been looking for you since Salamander beat my ass. Harry frowned. Why? Gajeel grabbed his cloak. The drive spell you taught Natsu. He told me all slayers can learn it. Hey. Pathetic. And here I thought I'd get a challenge from another slayer. He grabbed a hold of the salamander's head, lifting him by the hair. Well, I guess Yuki will give me that challenge. Natsu chuckled as his eyes opened. You want to fight Harry, huh? Get in line, buddy. Harry's taught me quite a bit about dragon slayers. Stuff Igneel never covered. His mother was a genius, even among the dragons. Shall I show you a little something he taught me? His skin was encased in flame. Lucy, stay back. You may get burned from if you get too close. Fire drive. Gajeel was forced to release the kid's head as the heat erupting from his skin melted the metal on his hand. What the hell? Natsu grinned and cracked his neck. Oh, man. I haven't used this spell since I trained with Harry. I forgot the boost it gives me. Lucy blinked and her eyes widened as Gajeel was sent flying into the wall, the metal protecting him cracked and some pieces falling off. Gajeel grunted as he got up, at least one broken rib with that last hit. Impressive. Yuki developed that spell. Natsu smirked. No, all dragon slayers can use it. Harry just taught it to me. Natsu raised his hands and a massive swirl of fire erupted over their heads. Gajeel lost consciousness as he was consumed by the fiery vortex. Lucy ran forward as soon as the heat died down, Natsu chuckling. I also forgot how much it drains me if I overdo it while in that mode. He collapsed. Harry was confused. Did Metallicana not teach you that? I mean, if you have the lacrima he gave you I can teach you, but I'm kinda busy with that. Looking around, Gajeel growled and took a small silver lacrima out. What's this got to do with the spell? Harry smiled. He truly did love teaching others, and it made it even better than Gajeel was the same age as him. Drive is a dragon slayer ability. It is a type of magic amplification technique that brings out the true power of our capabilities as users of dragon slayer magic, excluding the power boost granted by Dragon Force. Gajeel looked confused, so Harry sighed. In essence, once that thing is embedded in your body upon activation of your drive spell, the lacrima will release a bunch of dragon slayer particles into your body, enhancing all of your attributes. Gajeel growled. That's true. The moment he said drive, the heat burned through my steel skin and his speed went through the roof. If I help you take these punks down, you will teach me. Harry blinked in surprise. Deal. Let's go. Gajeel smirked and his entire body was encased in steel. Natsu, Lucy, Gray, and Juvia climbed off the boat and looked around. This place was crawling with guards. Gray mumbled as he saw piles of bodies and even some magical beasts. Lucy nodded. We should go in another way. Harry is taking this route. We should make sure Erza or the two cats aren't on a lower floor. Right. Good thinking, Lucy. Juvia emerged from the water. I have found an underwater path into the bottom of the tower. That's great, Gray said. Juvia smirked at Lucy. Hear that, Lucy? Gray complimented me. Lucy deadpanned. That's great, but let's talk about how we're going to get through this path. Juvia held up a bubble. I can form these so you guys can breathe. That's great. Let's go, Gray said. Harry growled as he came into a cage where a young blonde boy was talking about magic destroying humanity. He froze his legs and Gajeel sent an iron spike into the back of his head, knocking him out. Erza? Are you okay? He ran up and froze the ropes. Is he going to be okay? Erza asked as she knelt next to the kid. He's just knocked out Titania. He'll have a hell of a headache when he wakes up, but he'll be fine. What are you doing here, Gajeel? Erza frowned. He returned for his help taking this place down. I will teach him the drive spell I taught Natsu. Erza sighed and nodded. I can only assume the rest of them are coming too? Have you met Natsu? Harry raised an eyebrow. Erza closed her eyes and equipped her armor again and ran off. Harry shook his head. I understand that armor is a coping device, but she would be so much more eye-catching without constantly wearing it. He and Gajeel ran after her. The rest of the team Natsu were plowing their way through the wizards at the bottom of the tower. Man, how many people are here? Gray asked as he crushed a group of bad guys with a giant ice hammer. Lucy sighed as Virgo knocked the last one out. We have to find Erza and these guys just keep getting in the way. Virgo appeared. Princess, that bikini leaves little to the imagination. Lucy jumped. What am I supposed to do? I left my other clothes when we swam down here. Virgo had a wide smile. Let me help you, princess. Gray, who had been eating from a table nearby, got wide-eyed for a second, which ticked off Juvia. Lucy was now in a green dress. Don't I look cute? Thanks, Virgo. She smiled, but then frowned as Virgo vanished. Should I have asked her to bring you a set of dry clothes too? Gray, sans a shirt, was fanning his jeans next to Natsu, who had encased himself in flame. Nah, this will do. Lucy frowned. He's not a dryer. A nearby statue opened up and the platform lowered. That's weird, she said. Natsu shrugged. Hey, if they want to get their butt kicked by Fairy Tale, they're doing a pretty good job at asking for it. Natsu said as they ascended through the door. Unfortunately, they didn't count on a trap as they had been surrounded by the bad guys. Before they could do anything, the group in front of them had been cut down by Erza, and the group behind them either froze, or a steel spike smashed into them. Natsu looked confused. I know I've seen that before. Harry and, to everybody's surprise, Gajeel, emerged behind Erza. What's he doing here? Natsu demanded. Harry raised an eyebrow and Natsu was instantly shivering as the flames that engulfed him turned white and everyone but Gray and Harry could feel the cold from them. The same thing Juvia is here for would be my guess. Calm down, Natsu. The pink-haired man growled as his flames came back. Don't know how you did that. Gajeel smirked a little. He would never say it out loud, but seeing someone so easily beat Salamander pleased him. You all need to leave. Now, Erza said. What? No way. We can't do that. Gray and Natsu said at the same time. Lucy nodded. It's true. They took both Happy and Aika to Erza. Erza frowned and shook her head and turned around. Then it's probably Miliana. She's loved cats since we met. They won't come to any harm with her around. Get out of here. No way. I owe that blockhead for shooting me in the mouth. Natsu shouted back as he had already begun running off. That idiot, Lucy mutters. We want to stay and help, Gray said. You all need to leave. Now. With you and Harry, Gray, you can avoid triggering the motion sickness that seems prevalent with dragon slayers. Harry sniffed the air. Salty, why are you crying, Erza? Everyone else visibly startled as she turned around, tears streaming down her cheeks. This is something I have to take care of myself. Because win or lose, I'm staring death in the face. Harry growled darkly and his fist met her cheek, launching her headfirst into the wall. And what? You're just going to walk into that death due to some childhood crush you had? You're not at fault here, Erza. I've met with Simon, he explained everything from their point of view. You aren't the same little girl who couldn't use magic. You're the girl who was rivals with She-Demon, the premier requip user on Fairy Tale. You're a member of our family, and if there's one thing I've learned about family, you don't ever give up on them. Funny how the only person who ever got it is Natsu, and he was taught by Lasana. I will not let you throw your life away due to some stupid cult who brainwashed the kid you knew. Nor will I stand over your grave because you are too stubborn to accept help. Pack your pride away, Erza. Gajeel is one of the 10 wizard saints. You cannot do this alone, even if you somehow managed to beat everyone else. Gray, being the only other Fairy Tale member there other than the 2 S-class mages to know Lasana, personally flinched. A piece of Fairy Tale died that day. He is right, Erza. We want to help, and nothing you say can stop us. Erza sighed and stood absently rubbing the forming bruise on her face. It took a lot to make Harry angry like that, and suicide was one of those things. Very well. Since you are here, I should tell you all my story. She went on to explain the tower they were in, and how the black magic cult had kidnapped her and hundreds of others to build the damn thing, until Erza sparked a revolt and they beat that colt, only to find Gajeel had become the same as them. There was only one way to describe what Gajeel had become. Pure, unadulterated, evil. Which is why we are taking him down, Erza. When have any of us abandoned a friend in need? I seem to recall Lucy challenging the authority of the king of the celestial world for Leo. I know we rag on Gray's little habit, but we stood by him when his friend Leon came along and tried to free Deliora. You know what Natsu and I both did when he was going to throw his life away, Erza. Erza sighed and did remember the bruises Gray had on his face when they had found the guy. At the time she didn't care, when she was bringing in rule breakers. Same thing you did to me, I'd imagine. Harry nodded. Exactly. The difference here is I used my magic to numb the area for you. Couldn't do that for Gray. Tears streamed down her face again, this time in happiness. All right, let's go. Chapter 9. I apologize for the delay in this story. Wasn't working for me for a long while, then I had my grandfather die and my uncle commit suicide. Yay. This won't be my best chapter, but I had to get it out. Don't own fairy tale or Harry Potter. Gajeel smirked as he watched the fairies run around. The Yuki may have stopped his plans flat, but he would be the key to resurrecting his plans again. Turning to the wizard next to him, the council have been made aware of us. It's time for us to start. The man's grin grew and his skin paled, hair elongated, and he began to shriek like a rock star. Yay baby, it's time for a tasty lick. Harry watched with a frown marring his features as everyone split off. Gajeel went in chase of Natsu. Lucy and Juvia went to find any more prisoners, and Erza went dashing off to confront Gajeel. Harry shook his head and descended the tower. He had a plan, but it would take him out of the fight. Doing this could mean bad things for him, but oh well. Though he was suspicious as he passed all the downed mages. Welcome to the Tower of Heaven. I must admit, you have indeed ruined my plans for an Etherion blast to destroy us all. However, I have been forced to resort to drastic measures. You will no longer find any of my soldiers in the tower. Their magical essence has been converted to a bomb. I urge you all to find me, but to do so you have to go through my 3 knights. Lucy and Juvia were wandering around after having to check the cells and only finding either nothing or bodies. Lucy was slightly worried about the knights Gajeel had sent their way. Oh man, why couldn't Natsu or Harry have stuck around? Juvia frowned. For once we agree. Sticking 2 love rivals together is a bad idea. Before Lucy could retort, she had to cover her ears as a very loud noise sounded throughout the chamber that was in. What is that? It's so loud. I think it sounds rather nice, Juvia mentioned, not in the least bothered by the sound. Yay. You bitches ready to go to hell? A very pale man with long blue hair was playing guitar. What's up with his hair? Lucy asked, stunned, as it touched the ground. It does not matter, my darling Gray wants us to take this guy down, Juvia said. The guitarist laughed as a blast of magic erupted from his guitar. Lucy was forced to dive to the side, but Juvia just stood there as the blasts went straight through her body. Whoa. That's one rocking bod you've got there, babe. Juvia raised a hand. Thank you, it is entirely made of water. Waterlock. A bubble of water formed around the guy and Lucy began cheering. All right. I'm glad you Element 4 guys are on our side now. Juvia allowed a small smile to emerge, but it faltered as she noticed her spell was being absorbed. What? My waterlock spell is being broken. The guy smirked. Of course it is a doll. My hair loves water. Sometimes you just gotta let it soak, you know. Lucy gulped but pulled out her whip. That doesn't change anything. He blocked her whip with a single strum of his guitar. You know, I have to admit, your chicks have got some smoking hot bodies. How about you become my succubus? He pointed at them, and then once he decided on Juvia he began to play his guitar louder. Juvia, who began screaming in pain, couldn't understand what was going on. Juvia! Lucy shouted as her skin paled, her hair straightened, and the raincoat she had on became extremely tight black jeans and a tiny sleeveless shirt that only really covered her boobs. Yeah, rock on. I could have turned both of you into my slaves, but there's nothing hotter than a catfight. Give me some hair pulling, clothes tearing fun. He started playing on his guitar and Lucy found herself in a vortex of water. Juvia appeared before her. Now then, we've got to work on your clothing style if you want to rock. Lucy screamed in terror, covering herself up as Juvia ripped her dress, nearly exposing her boobs. She tied the remnants of her dress and got up. Yay. That's more like it. Go on Juvia, show me more. Juvia smirked and Lucy found herself within her water body. Lucy gasped as she heard a dripping sound. She's crying, even in all this water, I can hear that. She screamed as she was flung against the wall. Yay Juvia. Time for the finale. Juvia smirked, yay. Water Jigsaw Lucy grinned as she had an idea. Grabbing her key she stabbed it into her head. Open gate of the water-bearer, Aquarius. Out of Juvius's body, the blue mermaid erupted. She summoned her spirit out of my body? As long as there's water I can summon Aquarius. Lucy grinned but cowered as Aquarius was berating her for being creative and sent a wave of water across the whole floor. Juvia. She looked around as she resurfaced. Lucy, Juvia resurfaced near her. What did I tell you? Water is the best thing for my hair. You keep providing it, I'll just keep sucking it up. Lucy grasped Juvia's hand and both began to glow with magic, Lucy in gold, Juvia in blue. Deep within both the glowing ball of magic that allowed them to utilize magic began increasing ever so slightly. Harry stood up from the yellow ball of magic in front of him and looked up. That's unison raid. Lucy and Juvia are performing a unison raid. Talk about rare magic, geez Lucy. Performing magic that women people who have spent their whole lives attempting and failed so easily. Gajeel stared down at the chess piece that represented his knight, now cracked and falling to pieces. Unison raid. Grown men have dedicated their lives to that magic and have never once performed it. Well, Erza, it seems I underestimated your allies. That won't be happening again. He smirked at the lacrima showing the array of lighting magic at the base of the tower. It's only a matter of time. Lucy was panting in exhaustion as she looked at the now bald man. We did it, what was that? She had never felt that much magic within her before. I haven't the slightest clue, perhaps we should ask your friends, Juvia said as she collapsed. Yay, I'll ask Harry when we run into him again. He's studied all kinds of magic, he would know what that was. But first I need to rest Juvia, that was exhausting. Yes, I too am low on magic. Natsu frowned at the guy whose lower jaw was metal. Who are you anyway? Are you with Gajeel? No, I was only pretending to be on his side. We have to get your friends though, I have an inkling as to who these knights are. And it isn't a good thing for us. How do I know you're telling the truth? Simon growled in frustration. There was no way the famous salamander of fairy tale was this dim. Here. Your friend told me to show this to you should you not believe me. He pulled out the fairy tale symbol made of ice. Natsu blinked confused. That's Harry's trick, maybe gray, but he was with me most of the time. Simon nodded, happy to finally get somewhere, yay. And people from the Assassin's Guild Trinity Raven are here. We have to get out of here before they show up. An owl hoot sounded and Natsu jumped out of the way as a giant man with an owl's head and a jetpack landed where they had just been standing. Evildoers beware, for your swift justice is here. Natsu growled and his fist was covered in fire. Out of my way. His fist connected and the owlman went flying back, but to his surprise, the man merely stood and twisted his head back to the proper position. It's useless. Evildoers can never truly harm me, he bent down. Thruster his jetpack launched, huh? Natsu just stepped to the side. You missed it. You should work on your aim. But to his surprise, the jetpack was still under his control as it turned back at him and a compartment opened and grabbed him with mechanical hands. Ohu, I know my opponent's weaknesses. The owlman called out as the jetpack began to spin him around super fast. Oh no. Not transportation, Happy called out dancing around in concern. What? Simon asked stunned. It is the weakness of dragonslayers, Aika said floating next to him. Any dragonslayer of sufficient strength or one who has tapped into the deeper parts of the magic get motion sickness with any mode of transportation, and Natsu has the worst of the bunch. Simon stared at the owlman with some fear. Most magic users don't use that level of intelligence. They usually charge forth with their magic. For one to use intelligence was terrifying. Even the most basic of magic could be used in the most terrifying ways. They all received the shock of their lives when the jetpack released Natsu and the owlman ate him. What? Simon and Happy asked. Harry and I have come across this type of magic, Aika said in thought. It's a forbidden lost magic. Once you consume someone you absorb their magic, abilities and all. I never thought someone would use that magic. Especially in such an unorthodox method. It certainly explains the owl head. Natsu. Happy launch to the owl man, only to barely dodge the fire blast he sent at him. Gray dropped down. What is that thing? Aika whirled around. Gray. We have to stop him. He's consumed Natsu, and if we can't get him out he will steal Natsu's magic entirely. Gray growled and jumped towards the man, always the reckless one. We need to be taking down Gajeel and you get beaten by this scrub. This is the last time I'm going to be saving your ass. Gray growled and launched some ice spears. The owl man tilted his head back. Fire dragon roar. Gray was stunned as his ice spears melted. You should know by now that ice is no match against fire, he called out as the fire consumed Gray. Gray grunted as the fire was burning his skin. No, you're no Natsu. Grunting, he forced his magic out and all the flames froze. Hey, your flames aren't nearly as hot as Natsu's. Hell, even Harry produced hotter flames than you, and his magic is more in tune with ice like mine. He placed his arms together and a blade of ice erupted from his elbow and hand. Oh ho! Perhaps I should consume you as well. He leapt forward with his jaw extending, but he never got the chance as the boy twirled around slashing him with the blades of ice. Gray smirked as Gajeel changed his fist into steel and knocked the guy on the gut, forcing him to puke up Natsu. TCH. Figured I'd miss out on the fun, had to put that blockhead and cat chick in them off after the girls. Simon stared at the two fairy tale mages that collapsed onto cages, and the one who just showed. How strong are your comrades, Erza? None of my research on these people pointed to this potential. His gaze drifted to the man who was out cold on the ground. We may be able to pull this off. Erza was heading to the top of the tower, knowing that Gajeel's ego wouldn't allow him to be anywhere other than the one place he could look down on all those he deemed lower than him. She suddenly stopped as she heard a faint musical tone and a bad haiku. A woman appeared in front of her. She had long bright pink hair which was tied on top of her head in two large buns. She had a curvaceous figure, peach skin, a beauty mark underneath each eye, and sports red lipstick. She was wearing a long, slightly loose white kimono with a red stripe in between two black stripes around the waist as well as a red triangle at the bottom of her dress, decorated by flames and skulls motifs, open at the top to reveal her shoulders and a fair amount of cleavage. It's closed around the waist by a large black belt adorned with a horned skull. Her guild insignia is incorporated into her kimono and seen at the end of both of its sleeves. She also had ribbons tied around the sleeves, a buckled strap around her neck, and traditional sandals with extremely high platform soles. Her guild insignia could be seen at the bottom of her robe. Sakura petals were floating around her. You must be one of those knights that Gajeel mentioned. The woman smirked. That's right. I am the leader of Trinity Raven, a Karuga. Sho stepped in front of her. Don't worry, sister. I'll protect you. He held a handful of cards in his hand and threw them towards the woman, who just quickly drew her blade and all the cards heading for her split in half and Sho was thrown back in a fountain of blood as he stared wide-eyed at the woman. Foolish child, such paltry tricks won't work on me, she smirked slightly. Erza equipped her blade. Card magic can't help you against someone who uses a magic blade. Sho, stay back. A Karuga's smirk rose. Your single-minded focus on your past loves have blinded you to your future ones, and have narrowed your perspective in this battle. Ezra cried out in pain as her armor shattered. What? You were only a stepping stone for me. I admit I am quite upset that it was you who found my chambers, Erza. I had been truly hoping that Ice Dragon Slayer would come here. Ezra's glare hardened. You leave Harry out of this. I am your opponent, and you shall fall like all the rest. In a flashlight she equipped her Heaven's Wheel armor. Heaven's Wheel. Her blades swirled around her and she slashed them towards a Karuga. She just grinned and gripped her blade. Poultry. The dragon even understood after a few slashes. A swing of her blade shattered almost all of her blades and her armor. Harrison knew that using magic like that was useless. But you seem to need me to hold your hand. Equip your strongest armor. We shall see how strong you truly are. In a flash of light, she was now covered in heavy-duty black armor. Purgatory armor. She raised her hand and the club formed. I hope you still as sure of yourself as before. Only one person has ever been able to go toe-to-toe with this armor and live. She swung her club but ended up crying out as her armor shattered again. Memories flying through her mind of when she had first gotten this armor. Erza went flying back stunned. That's impossible. Purgatory armor is my strongest armor yet. Harry shook his head and crushed the bit of armor in his hand. You're hiding behind that armor, Erza. Her eye widened. I don't know why you think that the true strength of yourself is within the lifeless metal. No matter how powerful or well-made your armor will be, it can shatter. He bent down and stared in her one good eye. You are so much stronger than relying on armor, Erza. One day, you will discover opponents that no armor can protect you from. On that day, you will find your true strength. In a flash of light, Erza now had baggy red pants with flame motifs on the legs, her breasts only covered by cloth. You were right, Harry, I am more than a suit of armor. Ikaruga stared amused. Such indecent exposure in front of a young man. Is this some kind of joke? No cloth can stop my blade. The man you seek out once told me that I was more than a suit of armor. He was right. Everything I've done was to separate myself from everyone else. Ikaruga stared stunned as a few strands of her hair shifted to an icy blue color and one of her blades began glowing blue, emitting steam. Only Harry ever saw past my facade. He never pushed, never asked. I found myself being healed by one ice mage who loved magic so much he learned every magic he possibly could. Learned how to utilize them in unique ways. My fragile heart was slowly healed with ice. He helped me craft these blades. They shall be your downfall. Raising her blades, Ikaruga spied runes carved into the blades. Ah! She grasped her blade. Shall we see how much I've grown against him? Both dashed forward and after a tense second Ikaruga burst into blood and one of Erza's blades shattered. Hey, you truly are strong. But it won't matter. Within a few minutes, we will all be dead. What? Ezra asked. The Yuki, he is being manipulated. Gajeel knows that he is setting up a massive thunder palace in an attempt to destroy the tower. He knew that Harry wouldn't be able to stand this magic, and would do anything to destroy this tower. In a few minutes the tower and everyone else will be gone. She breathed her last. Harry, show. Alert Simon of the coming explosion. We have to evacuate the tower. She turned and limped forward. What about you? Sho called. I'm going to stop Gajeel, she called back. Sister, Sho called, unable to follow due to her injuries. We gotta get out of here, Miliana. A huge explosion is heading our way. Miliana turned to her friend and nodded. All right, Wally, let's go. She wrapped Lucy in her magic-canceling ropes and dragged her along. Ezra stumbled her way into the room her old friend had changed. Is the game truly over already? Do you truly take such pleasure in manipulating everyone else around you? Ezra asked. But of course. Once we are born, to the moment of death, we all live the terrible dance that is life. The others are no longer under your influence. That's fine. Now that the tower is complete, I do not need for them. What is that? One of the council members asked. Zooming in, they stared wide-eyed at the thousands of yellow orbs surrounding the tower. That is a thunder palace. But that level will utterly decimate anything within it. That much would be on the level of an Atherton blast. But how did they manage that? By modifying it. The eldest of them said, I've seen this. Harry doesn't expend much magical energy making them, but he compresses the magic inside to unleash a magic blast far stronger than the rest. Compression magic. They stared at the screen. Harry stopped on one of the steps, staring at the crack in the wall with a frown. Approaching it, he brushed off the pieces. Oh shit. He stared at the bluestone underneath it. Erza. He began running as fast as he could. The tower was made of a giant lacrima. Everything was consumed by lightning. Erza just sat there as the lightning began forming, holding her oldest friend close, not seeing the large grin he had on his face. Chapter 10. I'm sorry for the wait. I meant to get this chapter out yesterday, but I was so tired after work I passed right out as I got home. Now, I've gotten a few questions about Harry's use of his homeworld's magic. He's no expert at all, but he does know a few things about it. This Harry Potter has perfect memory recall. He can remember everything from the moment he opened his eyes, and even in canon, I could picture Lily Potter working on a project or something with Harry nearby. So my Harry Potter learned the theory and basics behind certain abilities to talk about, or study in front of Harry. Also, while on the subject, the magic in Fairy Tale Harry seems to be using outside of his Dragonslayer magic is purely Harry studying his whole life. His primary form of combat is his Slayer magic, but he can use others. This chapter ends the Tower of Heaven arc. I know I didn't change much from canon, but as much as I tried I couldn't take away Natsu's first time using Dragon Force. I promise I'll change things up soon, just please be patient. I don't own Harry Potter or Fairy Tale. Harry screamed in pain as his magic flung him through the wall and into the ocean. Damn it, he played me hook, line and sinker. As he sank lower, a very familiar voice sounded to him. Harry, you have to get up, awaken the abilities you've inherited from your parents. He gasped as memories flashed through his mind. Harry was sitting on his mother's lap as he observed his father laughing with his friends. You're just jealous that my form is better, prongs. The black-haired one clapped his hand onto his friend's shoulder. Oh, yay? Says who? James glared at Sirius. Sirius grinned. Harry, of course. Isn't that right, kid? Baby Harry laughed and clapped as Sirius was replaced by a large black dog. Really, Sirius? Why must you show off to a baby? Lily sighed. Padfoot was replaced by Sirius again. Don't be jealous that Harry will probably grasp the animagus transformation before you, Lily. A red light impacted Sirius right on the rear, causing Remus and Peter to laugh wildly. Harry opened his eyes. Animagus, embracing your inner animal. A bright blue light began encasing Harry's body. You tricked me? Erza said, stunned. The look on your face is priceless. I only wish I could see your friend's face as he discovered that I used him. I do admit that he had me worried for a brief moment when he ruined my plans for the council. But he had his uses. Gajeel smirked. Ezra growled in anger. What would your brother think of this then? Gajeel laughed. Oh my dear, did Harry bother to tell you then? He smirked as she stared at Gajeel as a second him seemed to phase into existence. Astral projections are an amazing thing, if you don't have to fight. Sagraine and I are and always have been the same. It was the perfect plan. Infiltrate the council, trick them into firing an Etherion blast at the tower, and bring their whole base to the ground. His smirk went away as Sagraine faded away and Gajeel began glowing with magical energy, but then your little friend came along. Wasn't phased at all from my second astral projection, didn't waste any time snapping its neck because he wasn't fooled by something like that, and what does he do? He ruins my plans with some sort of messenger magic to alert the council of my ruse, but I had the last laugh. He never once suspected that this tower was a giant lacrima. What had hindered me, helped me realize my dream. He looked towards Erza. Now I only need one more component for the tower. 2 fairies for the price of 1. Erza slammed her fist down and pulled a sword from the magic circle that erupted underneath her. You bastard, I'll kill you before you get the chance. She swung her blade and summoned a second one to her offhand, but he dodged with ease every time. Come now, Erza. Don't tell me you used up all your magic fighting a Karuga. He kicked her to the ground. As she was going to get up and start attacking, her magic began turning against her. That's when she noticed the red markings across her body. What did you do to me? Just a little binding snake. I placed that on you during our heartwarming embrace. He walked up and dragged her by her hair as a smooth section of the tower rose. Now Erza. You shall be sacrificed. The ether nano will break down your body and reconstitute it as Lord Zareth's. No. Erza cried as her body was slowly consumed by the lacrima. Just as she was losing consciousness, she felt a pair of arms wrap around her. She opened her eyes to see Natsu holding her. Natsu? She turned her head and stared at the stunned face of Gajeel as a steel spike retracted from his gut. Gajeel, what are you two doing here? Gajeel smirked and cracked his knuckles. I made a deal with the Yuki. I helped beat this guy down. He gives me the secret to the Dragon Slayer spell drive. Besides, can't let Salamander show me up. Natsu smiled down at Erza. We've got to get back to work soon, Erza. You know what Lucy and Harry are like if we take too long off. You have to run. Gajeel isn't to be taken lightly. Natsu grinned and pulled the redhead into a hug, before promptly punching her in the gut, rendering her unconscious. That was rather foolhardy. I hadn't believed the full scope of what the rumors said about you, Dragneel, but I was wrong. She was crying. Erza doesn't cry. Natsu's body was encased in flame. If you want Erza, you'll have to go through us. Gajeel smirked and raised a hand. Is that a challenge? I admit that I am curious as to what a Dragon Slayer is capable of. Both Natsu and Gajeel began throwing spells and magic at the Wizard Saint with abandon, fire, and steel flying everywhere. Fire Dragon Iron Dragon Roar twin blasts of magic collided with the blue-haired mage and both dragon slayers panted slightly. The fire that remained was pushed away and Gajeel stood there. The only damage done was his jacket had been destroyed. Is that all? I expected more from the sons of Igneal and Metallicana, but if that's all you will both fall. Meteor. Both slayers were put on the defensive as Gajeel's speed was drastically improved, both only barely keeping up with their enhanced abilities. Natsu growled in anger. Fire Drive Gajeel grunted in pain as Natsu twirled around and landed a punch to his face. Hey. I do wonder what you will do without Potter. From what I've observed over the years, he is the most knowledgeable in the Dragon Slayer arts. His mother had been rumored to be the more scholarly type. Shame that one can't have a defense against one's own magic. I'll tell you what. He clenched his fist, I'll even ensure that your bodies land next to his. His surprise rose as Natsu's speed rose even higher and he found himself flying towards the Iron Dragon Slayer, only to be planted firmly in the ground. Shut up. If you truly think Harry is dead, you'll be sorely mistaken. The guy is more stubborn than I am. He barely dodged out of the way of magical blasts sent his way. Gajeel rose from the ground and launched himself into the air. I grow tired of your resistance. Heavenly Body Magic Grand Chariot. Both Natsu and Gajeel cried out in pain as 7 massive blasts of magic rained down on them. The Magic Council stared at the Lacrima as their satellite finally got into place. You sure we should do this? It'll go out to any Lacrima that can receive the signal. We need to see what's going on, another said as the image began broadcasting across Fury. Landing on the ground, he observed the 2 slayers. That spell had the power equal to that of a falling meteor. I'm surprised their bodies are still intact. He looked around. But I can't afford much more damage to the tower. The magic is beginning to leak out. He turned to the downed Erza but was halted as rocks were thrown at him. As one bounced off his shoulder, Natsu began getting up. Hey, like that. It's my secret attack. Spitting out the blood that had accumulated in his mouth, Natsu smirked. Now, I believe I heard you don't want this tower destroyed? He punched a crystal off the tower. You picked the wrong guy to fight for not wanting things destroyed. It's kinda my specialty. Flames encased his fist. I'm all fired up now. More than I ever have been before. Gajeel paled and glared at the guy. You won't get in my way. I've dreamed of this moment for so long, and I won't let a fool like you stop me. Swinging his arms, beams of golden light chased down Natsu, who barely managed to dodge, except the last one. Natsu held that at bay. Erza woke with a start and stared as Natsu was steadily getting pushed back by Gajeel. Panicked. Natsu. But to her surprise, read the spell, leapt up, and caused a massive explosion. He's aiming for the tower, of course. The worse the Lacrima is damaged, the more it leaks. Natsu was panting. See? What did I tell you? Breaking stuff is my specialty. Gajeel looked pissed. I won't let you stop me. He raised his arms and a black hole formed above his body. My shadow is bending towards the light. Stop. That spell can kill him. Erza called out as she tried to stand up, but when it became obvious that he was no longer listening, she threw herself in front of Natsu. If you finish that spell, you'll take me out. The winds died down and Gajeel stared dumbfounded, like he had never seen anyone willing to sacrifice themselves for someone else. You need your sacrifice, don't you? Gajeel's smirk rose. Indeed I do. The sacrifice needed is a wizard or witch on par with the 10 wizard saints. Don't think you're the only one that fits that bill. Heavenly Body Magic, Alteris. The black hole charged towards them, and Natsu couldn't believe the guy had launched that attack. Get out of the way, Erza. But just before it could collide with Erza, someone jumped in the way. Erza stared wide-eyed as her childhood friend took the blast. Simon. Hey, I saved you this time, Erza. Don't talk, Simon, save your energy. She held his body. Erza, I've always loved you. He collapsed and Erza cried out in anguish. Natsu just stared wide-eyed at the guy, amazed that he would do that for his friend. Though that amazement turned to anger as Gajeel began laughing. I had no idea you were still in the tower, you filthy rat. An ultimately pointless sacrifice, because I won't be letting any of you leave alive. But his speech was cut off as Natsu punched him in the face. Shut up. Gajeel went flying back and groaned in pain as he collided with the Lacrima. Everyone stared stunned as Natsu began eating a chunk of the Lacrima. You damn fool salamander. That's not gonna do anything but hurt you. Gajeel sat up. Erza stared at the Iron Dragon Slayer. What are you talking about? Ether Nano is made of all types of elemental magic. It could poison him. Gajeel was laughing as Natsu clutched his throat and rolled on the ground. It would certainly make my job easier if he killed himself. What a foolish thing to do. Gajeel chuckled as he observed scales begin to erupt around Natsu's eyes. That would be true ordinarily. But as you said, it's made of all types of elemental magic. So he is both healing and taking damage at the same time. The heat rose across the tower and Gajeel stared in shock as the fire took the form of a dragon. No, he absorbed the magic. That's as far as he got as Natsu charged at him so fast, encased in his fire it seemed like a meteor had struck him right in the face. Faster than he could track, Natsu leapt up and crashed back down on top of him. You made Erza cry, hurt her again and I'll kill you. Gajeel glared at the Dragon Slayer, as if he'll ever truly go through with that threat. Meteor. Lucy and everyone else stared in fear as the top of the tower exploded. What's happening? Lucy asked in fear. That matchstick. Just can't help but destroy everything around him, Gray mumbled. Everyone stared wide-eyed as the water around them began to freeze over and a giant dragon rose from the water. Gajeel shot up encased in his golden magic, but his surprise reached a new level as a literal dragon rose out of the water and swung its tail at him, flinging him back into the tower. Ah! He groaned in pain. Gajeel stared at the dragon in surprise as he popped his shoulder back into place. As the dragon landed, it was suffused into a golden light and his surprise rose even more as the dragon was replaced with Yuki. Harry shook his head. He wished he had been there when his father had explained the risks of the transformation. He had nearly succumbed to the primal instincts of the dragon. Head rush, he collapsed to one knee. Gajeel scowled at the boy using unknown magics. You dragon slayers are a stubborn lot, but I think it's time we stop messing around. Leaping up to the sky, he lit his magic and a massive gray magic circle appeared in front of him. Erza stared stunned at that. He's casting Abyss Break. Why? You'll destroy the tower. Gajeel laughed at that. This tower means nothing. Now that I've done it, I can build another on half the time. Lord Zareth, your time is near. Harry grunted as he closed his eyes. Yuki, you think you got one last attack left in you? Gajeel asked as he stood next to him. Yay, but only enough to stop the Abyss Break, Harry grunted. Natsu punched his hand, fire rising from his fist. Do that and I'll take care of that bastard. Gajeel smirked and held up his hand that had hovering silvery magic above it. Harry's eyes widened, but he could not deny the smirk that rose as his blue magic began to form. You realize that countless people have studied and attempted this, but almost all have failed. We're dragons. We don't fail. Gajeel retorted, and Harry could not help but nod. Holding the flat of his palm outwards towards Gajeel, he allowed his magic to merge with the other Dragon Slayer. Dragon Slayer Secret Art. Both called out as they felt the pressure rise, a gray magic circle erupting underneath them. Hidden Fusion Form. Iron Dragon Frost Lotus Explosion. Both released the spell as the pressure was becoming too much to contain, and outshot a massive blast of silvery energy that took the shape of a dragon. Gajeel could only stare in shock as for the second time these people had performed a unison raid. His spell shattered by the power created. Natsu jumped up. It's time for you to stop listening to that demon inside you, Gajeel. He launched himself from the tower and was encased in his fire, a second dragon following the first as he was sent flying away from the impact into his gut. Erza stared stunned as the scales along Natsu's arms and eyes faded and he and Gajeel collapsed dead. Harry just chuckled, looking up. What would you say, Mother, a unison raid? You talked so much about the phenomena before. Harry. What happened to Natsu? Erza asked, limping to him. He grunted as he pulled Gajeel up. Erza went towards Natsu. It's called Dragon Force Erza, the final and ultimate form of our magic. It can't be awakened normally, as you saw Natsu only obtained it by nearly killing himself eating pure magic. He looked around and sighed as the tower began to glow. Erza, it's time to go. He handed her Gajeel. Harry, what are you doing? She asked cautiously. Harry just smiled. It's my magic, Erza. I can direct it, but you have to get out of here. She shook her head. No, we can both get out of here. I'm not leaving you. Harry chuckled and looked out to the ocean. That's the problem, Erza. You know as well as I do that the amount of condensed magic could destroy all of Akala Resort, even from this distance. There is no outrunning it. He turned to the woman. Goodbye, Erza. She blinked at the glow coming from Gajeel's belt and looked up sharply. No, she felt a hook in her navel and then everything seemed to dissolve into blurs. Erza. Lucy gasped out in relief as the woman appeared with Gajeel and Natsu in tow. No, she grabbed Gajeel's belt. Take me back. I have to help him. Harry sighed and closed his eyes, the magic of the lacrima calling to him. Raising his hands, pure magic began to rise. Opening his mouth wide, he began to suck in, the magic within the air beginning to get sucked in. He never noticed the changes his body underwent. Everyone who was watching stared in shock as the man slowly began to eat all of the magic. Is that fool crazy? He'll never be able to contain all of that magic? Makarov stared at the screen, only a very tiny part of his mind sparing any thought to the magic Harry had just used to get his other children out. Mira just smiled as Harry's hair began to freeze over and he developed strange feather-like things around his wrist. That's where you're wrong, Master. If anyone can pull this off, it's Harry. You know as well as I that even when he first pit in the face of what we thought was possible, we just saw him transform into a dragon, and teleport Erza, Natsu, and Gajeel away. Makarov did have to concede that Harry used certain forms of magic sometimes that he could only assume were invented in his homeworld. A world he had learned from his conversations with the boy and his birth mother, where magic was far weaker but much more diverse. Dragonslayer Secret Art, Longinus Smasher. Both wizard and witch stared as Harry unleashed a massive beam from his mouth, completely overshadowing any roar they had seen from any of the Dragonslayers. As he collapsed, he could swear he saw his mother coming for him again. Mum, he reached up at the dragon. The tidal wave that rose from the blast of magic that was released blew Juvia's air bubble all the way to shore. The air is so charged with magic, Lucy said. Ezra nodded. That's the only way it could have worked. Send the explosion up, let it leak into the air. Everyone blinked at the flapping of wings and stared in awe at the majestic blue dragon that was heading towards them, something clutched in both claws. Natsu stared at the dragon. Somehow he knew this one wasn't Harry. You're his mother, aren't you? As the dragon landed, Erza saw Harry's and Simon's bodies. Yes, I needed to come. To save my child. She lowered her nose and nuzzled his unconscious form. He will be fine. Gajeel grunted. Where is Metallicana? I owe him an ass-kicking for abandoning me. The dragon chuckled. He is closer than you will know. They will show themselves when the need rises the most. Her body began to glow. But I must leave. It is not safe for me to be here. Her body faded into dust, letting only Lucy see it seemingly fuse with Harry's body. Harry. You idiot. Erza collapsed and pulled the man into a hug. Harry just chuckled weakly. Hey Erza, thought you got rid of me, huh? The rest of Erza's childhood friends stared in horror at Simon's mangled body. They had never expected Jalal to kill any of them. Harry stared at Natsu as he snored away. He's been out for days, Erza said. Gray grumbled. What did the idiot expect? Eating raw magic like that? I knew he was stupid, but that bakes the cake. Natsu shot up and glared at Gray. Say that again and I'll smack you. And promptly collapsed back into a dead sleep. Harry burst out laughing as Gray looked pissed. He only woke up to pick a fight with me? Looking out, Harry spotted something. Erza. He pointed his bandaged arm out and his red-headed friend saw her old friends sneaking out to the ocean with a boat held above their heads. She promptly dashed out and Harry turned. Watch after Natsu, Gray. I've got a deal to hold up with Gajeel. Whatever, man. Just hurry up. He waved off. Harry chuckled and pulled out the silvery lacrima Gajeel usually wore. It's a good thing you passed out, Gajeel. This normally hurts like a bitch. He cut into his shoulder. Looking out across the ocean, Harry could see the Fury Navy heading for the remainder of the Tower of Heaven. It's different, Ico. He held his hand up, which was glowing slightly. I'm sure you'll get control of it, Harry. You always told me the importance of proper control of magic, she said. Maybe, he mumbled and focused on the magic he could feel writhing just beneath his skin, waiting to be released. Hey. It's time to go home. Get your ass down here or we're leaving you, Natsu called up. Harry chuckled. Come on, pal. Let's go home. She smiled and flew Harry down to the ground. Chapter 11a. And sorry for the wait on this. With us entering a new season, one had to watch the whole thing and figure out how and what I wanted to change. I require your help here though. In this chapter I gave Laxus an out from being expelled from the guild, but I'm not sure I should do that, and if I do I plan on him traveling around either way. I am considering having the lacrima in him removed. I mean, he is pretty strong without his Dragon Slayer magic. And I literally cannot remember him using his Slayer magic again. After this season anyway. Let me know. Don't own Harry Potter or Fairy Tale. Laxus chuckled, looking down on Magnolia. This will all come to an end. All that's needed is to beat those other wimps. Your era is coming to an end, old man. A small part of him deep down was screaming at him to not do this, that it was way too far, but another part was laughing at that part. Harry looked around as the decorations rose onto the buildings around. It's already time for the Harvest Festival, huh? Aiko floated near him. Yay. Laxus has a plot. Look at Freed. He pointed to the green-haired man. Harry turned to the green-haired man, who was waving his rapier around. Here, lay these at the four corners of the town, Aiko. I hope we don't need to use them, but knowing Laxus, he handed a small bag over. Aiko frowned at the glowing rocks within. All right, be careful, Harry. You barely beat him past time, and that was on a mountain during a blizzard. Harry waved his friend off. I'll be fine. That was years ago. On his way back he came across a morose Makarov. Oh, hello Harry. What are you doing out and about? Mira smiled at the boy, and nodded thanks as he took one of the bags she was holding. Aiko and I like to watch the town transform. Every day during the festival we spend about an hour on that hill up there watching as decorations and stuff rise. Makarov grinned at the boy. Not too long ago he had honestly considered handing off his guild title to this kid. Out of all his children, Harry seemed to think much more than the rest. He innovated with his magic, branched out and learned everything he could. But he wasn't ready to retire yet. He was still needed. Have you thought of what you're going to sow this year, Harry? He asked. Harry was unlike anyone else. He did something different every single year. Last year he had used the giant's magic. He himself had taught the boy to shape himself into a float where Natsu and Erza had shown their skills off from his shoulders. Welcome ladies and gentlemen to the Fairy Tales beauty pageant. We are about to begin. I'm Max Galore, your host. Harry huffed and looked around with a frown. They said beauty contest, but it was more a chance for some people to ogle their crush without repercussion. Surprised you're here, Harry. Natsu said woozily. He still hadn't recovered from eating ether nano. Not a surprise, as Gajeel had aptly put it back then. Natsu's body was both healing and hurting itself. Dragon Slayers could eat the stuff, but it made you feel off for a very long time. Something's happening, I'm not sure what. He huffed, hoping that he was wrong. What do you mean? Gray asked. The Thunder Legion is back in town, and I've seen Freed wandering around writing runes. Both Fire and Ice Mage's eyes widened. Our first contestant is the exotic beauty, with a penchant for alcohol, Kana Alberona. The announcer attracted their attention as the stage light moved to shine on the woman who was standing there with one hand holding her cards. Throwing them into the air, they formed a barrier around her before dissipating to reveal her in a swimsuit, one hand messing up her hair, giving her a wild exotic look. She smirked. That prize money will cover my tab. Harry groaned. Well, a lot of people are going to do the bikini thing. Gray looked to his friend with a frown. Harry always seemed to know something, and sometimes it bordered on the prophetic. Next up is a newcomer, but don't underestimate her skills as her magic is S-class. Here is Juvia Loxer. Harry had to hold a snort in. Juvia was barely S-class, she was only considered it because of her water body trick. She used her magic to make it seem like a day at the beach while also wearing a swimsuit. Do you like what you see, Gray? She shouted, proving Harry right. Harry and Natsu let out a few chuckles. It seems he does judging to his expression. Next up is the poster girl for Fairy Tale, the one who has put the nation under her spell, Mirajane Strauss. The crowd cheered the low mild. I'm going to use my transformation magic. A lot of people leaned forward, expecting some sexy forms. Well, everyone but Harry. He knew Mira couldn't do full body transformation magic for now. To everyone's disappointment, she did not change into different outfits. Instead, she changed her face to replicate members of the guild. Happy got a kick out of it when she had his face. Harry laughed. Don't know what you all expected. Mira hasn't been able to do a full body transformation for a long while. Some people stared at him like they hadn't actually known that, causing him to roll his eyes. Crystal blue eyes unseen by anyone stared down at the mage. Hey, this will finally decide if you are the mage I think you are. Next up is the Titania Erza. The cheers for her were almost as loud as Myra's. I shall show you all a very special requip. The wind swirled around her in a dramatic fashion till it settled and showed Erza in goth loli outfit. Gray spat out his drink. Goth loli, he exclaimed in shock. How do you know what that is? Harry asked, shooting him a strange look. Gray just blushed and mumbled something about a really weird job. Harry shrugged. We all have weird jobs. I've seen some strange requips Erza has gotten from those. Gray stared at him, a smirk rising. Good blackmail material on Erza was rare. Like what? Harry chuckled. Remember when Happy and her changed places? That whole bathing suit thing. He nodded. Let's just say that's one of her more appropriate suites. I remember one time when we were doing an S-class request on an island. That's as far as he got when a metal boot smashed into his face. Erza's face as crimson as her hair up on the stage. You shut your mouth. She knew exactly what he was talking about. Laughs sounded out as Harry got back to his seat and grumbled under his breath. Natsu's sensitive hearing picking up something about redheads and anger causing him to laugh. Next up is the smartest girl in fairy tale, Levy McGarden. The announcer said, getting back on track. Levy's performance was fairly average, using her solid script to make several images and words. Next up is the cowgirl that's got your heart in her sights, Biska. Standing there was Biska in nothing but a swimsuit. Holding up her hands she revealed several coins, which she tossed into the air. Requip. She called, holding out her hand from which a rifle appeared. Bullseye, she called, firing a hole in all 5 coins at the same time. Yeehaw. So hot, muttered Alzak, staring at her, his eyes having morphed into hearts. Last but not least, the rookie Lucy. She came out on stage in a cheerleader's outfit. I'm a celestial wizard and me and my spirits are going to put on a show for you. The crowd cheered at that, but the lights flicked off of her almost instantly. Entry number 8. Announce a female voice. Hey, hold on, I haven't even gone yet. Lucy yelled in annoyance. At least give her a shot before you kicked her off stage. Did we have 8 contestants? I thought Lucy would be the last, Gray mumbled. I am the very definition of fairy, spoke a green-themed woman stepping on stage, and I define beauty. That's Mira, shouted Harry from his seat, getting chuckles from those who heard. The woman ignored him and continued. I am the most powerful female in fairy tale. That Erza, she continued once more despite the interruptions, and I am the kindest of them all. You're a crazy bitch with a superiority complex. How dare you? She snarled before taking a deep breath to calm herself. Anyway, this little farce of a competition is over. I am the clear winner. Hey, who are you to decide that? Yelled Lucy, incredibly annoyed with this woman. Oh, and you are? Evergreen asked, lowering her glasses. Lucy, don't look her in the eyes, shouted Gray in fear. What? She questioned before making the mistake of looking Evergreen in the eye. She only had time to look surprised before she frowned as she noticed the glow coming from the pouch she kept her keys on. What's going on? Some strange symbols were glowing on it. Down in the stands, Harry's eyebrows rose. Those are still working? Hot damn, that girl must have magic for days. Celestial magic suits her well. Gray blinked in surprise. Lucy had clearly looked Evergreen in the eyes, so why wasn't she turning to stone? A dirty scowl rose on Evergreen's face. What did you do, you bastard? Harry snorted. Out of all the dragon slayers, he was probably the only non-bastard. It's something I do every mission, Evergreen. Draw some runes around something that my partners always carry with them. It's designed to repel any foreign magic that causes problems, like say, your Gorgon eye. Though I am just as surprised as you that the ones I wrote on Lucis' key pouch are working so well after this long. Lucis' passive magic field must be keeping them going. A large lightning bolt struck, causing Lucy to stumble back in surprise, but this time she did see a slight sparkle in the air around her that seemed to repel any stray bolts that landed near her. She had no idea that Harry had protected them like that. Aquarius turned towards the mirror and scoffed at her summoner. Foolish girl. Of course you wouldn't notice another person's magic surrounding our keys. Max paled. This is bad. Everyone run now. The crowd did not need to be told twice. Living in a town of mages taught them that when a fight was about to start to get clear As the crowd rushed out of the building, Makarov frowned in annoyance. What do you think you are doing? Evergreen, are you trying to ruin the festival for everyone? Evergreen let out a giggle. Oh really, because I believe the fun is just getting started. Behind her the curtain separating the contestants from the crowd fell, revealing all of them had been turned to stone. Harry frowned at Erza. She had received his runes too. Perhaps it was because Lucy mostly used her magic to summon, therefore when not using it, it strengthens her magical aura, or maybe her keys. Those were highly magical, and it would certainly explain why Erza's runes failed but not Lucis. Stop this nonsense right now, Evergreen, or else. Makarov ordered, and Evergreen stepped back a bit in fear. One did not become a member of the 10 Wizard Saints without a good reason. Well, looks like all your fans have run off. Laxus laughed. What a shame, because the fun is just beginning. Laxus. Makarov growled, clenching his fist. Laxus, what are doing? Harry asked, seeing something in his eyes. I'm weeding out the weak of this guild. He calmly stated. We are going to have a competition, and whoever is left standing at the end is the winner. Laxus, stop this nonsense now, Makarov ordered. You can't hope to think you can take us all on. But he is not alone, stated Freed, stepping out from behind his cover, Bixlow doing the same. That's right, it's a fairy tale battle royal. You did all this to get us to fight? Shouted Harry in disbelief. We don't need a reason to do that. We beat the shit out of each other on a daily basis. No, I want a real fight, and every man for himself. Fight till you can't walk, no more battle. Why should we even do this? Questioned Wakaba. Because if you don't, we will reduce these lovely statues to rubble. You have 3 hours. Laxus. Roared Natsu, launching himself at the lightning mage, fists ignited. Laxus smirked. That's the right attitude, but you're stepping above your pay grade, kid. Sit back down. A lightning bolt crashed into Natsu, causing him to cry out on pain and land in a twitching heap. In a flash of light blinded him, when it cleared, the Thunder Legion was gone. The wizards stood still for a moment before they start to rush out, hoping to find and stop the Thunder Legion. Stop! Hollered Harry, cause all the members of Fairy Tale to halt. Be careful and stay away from each other, he warned. I've seen Freed around town, and when Laxus says a battle royal, he means a battle royal. He has probably set up runes that force you to fight if you get close, so be careful, he reiterated. Keeping his words, Fairy Tale rushed out of the hall, hoping to save their friends. Makarov turned to Harry. Can you beat Laxus? Harry waved the man off. Of course I could. The lacrima embedded in his body is severely affecting him right now. He would be throwing power around but have no control, but it doesn't matter, I can't get out either. Makarov frowned. What? You don't look over 80. I'm not. But a dragon slayer magic is very closely intertwined with the dragon who gave us the power, so to a runic barrier our age is the same as our dragon parents. I doubt Natsu or Gajeel could get out due to that. Almost to prove his point, Natsu crashed into the barrier head first. Makarov growled in anger. The only good thing he was hearing was that this whole situation may not even be Laxus's fault. He knew that his son implanting that lacrima was a bad idea, and it made it worse that the thing was so badly placed in his body. Looking up, he frowned as words began showing themselves. Macau versus Wakaba. Why are they fighting? It's like I said, Gramps, Harry muttered, watching matches show up repeatedly. I saw Freed wandering around town. He probably has a barrier around the entire town he can control. Natsu frowned as he saw Bixlow and Gray's name show up. So this isn't actually a fight then, he growled out. Makarov looked confused, but Harry eyed the often oblivious Slayer with respect. Correct. This whole thing is rigged. Gray is going to lose because Bixlow can just have Freed change the rules. Gray is powerful, could probably beat the man, but Freed will change those rules if he senses one of them going down. Makarov heard whimpering nearby and frowned as he saw Redis. Redis, what are you still doing here? Harry stared at the barrier. It would make sense, Master. Redis is not a mage made for combat. I'm afraid Laxus will hurt me, he mumbled. I wouldn't worry, Redis. Laxus wouldn't bother with you. People like him only see strength as good. At most he would have one of his little legion get you because you're not worth his time in his eyes. Harry frowned as he raised a glowing finger. I wonder, he began drawing a symbol on the invisible wall. Just as the thing began glowing brightly, laughing sounded out. Oh, it's like you know me so well, Potter. A translucent image of Laxus appeared and sneered at Redis. He ain't worth my time, you though, hey. He gazed at the runic wall. I do look forward to our rematch. He faded away. Makarov growled, read us. See if you can get to Porliasika, she may have a potion to cure petrification. The artist said. Don't bother Redis. Crazy though he may be, Laxus is no fool. He probably had Freed put up a barrier to prevent that from happening, but a potion, I wonder if those could work. From what we've observed, magic is far stronger here than there, but if it can cure all the creature's effects there, it's worth a try. He pulled out a matchbox from his pocket. What are you doing, Harry? He asked as the tiny box enlarged into a trunk. Trying something new. You see, after my parents re-established contact with me, my mother and I compared notes about magic there and here, and she grew worried for my health when she found out how much stronger magic was here. So she sends over a trunk of potions every now and then. I wonder if a mandrake drought will work against Evergreen's magic. To his amazement, the boy stepped into the trunk and disappeared into the thing like it was a staircase. What? He followed and stared around at the bottles lining the wall. How is this possible? Harry grinned at the guild master. Apparently magic back home is extremely varied. It isn't as strong as here, but they use it in different ways. Waving his hand, like this. A spatial expansion charm. It makes the inside larger than the outside. He turned and smiled at a chunky green potion. What is that? A mandrake drought. In my original world there are several magical creatures who can cause petrification. This should free the girls, I think. The guild master stared at the boy. Harry had always had a passion for magic that had never been seen before. He studied every branch he could get his hands on, even if it was theoretical, such as ancient healing magics that he wasn't capable of. Harry, why can't I get out of the guild? Natsu burst in. Harry glared at the pyro. Natsu, do not light a flame in here. Some of these things are highly explosive. The pinkette gulped and nodded. As to your question, it's like I told the master. We received our magic from the very blood of our dragons, so our magic is being identified as several thousand years old, just like our parents. The two followed him out and he shut the trunk lid, and hit a rune on the side, shrinking the thing down. But how are we going to fight? Natsu groaned. Harry sighed and looked to the wall, seeing several rapidly developing holes. We must have to wait. See that symbol I drew? Natsu nodded. It's designed to siphon off magic from whatever it's put on. Pretty soon we will be able to head out, and hopefully with the girls freed the boys will stop their rampage. He held the potion up to Mirajane's mouth and stepped back once he had poured half of it down her throat. Cracks began forming and Natsu was freaking out. What did you do? Seeing the rock flakes give way to skin, he smiled. Relax, Natsu. The potion is peeling away the magic that is trapping her. Mira collapsed to her knees, panting. What does that taste? Her face scrunched up, but her attention was caught by a chuckle next to her. Sorry, Mira. I've been studying potion making, but I haven't quite gotten to the point of recreating these. So home remedy is the best I got. Unfortunately, that means the potions will taste like ass more often than not. Makarov grinned and began distributing it to others. What about Lucy? Is she in any danger? Harry shook his head, looking at the stunned blonde. No, truthfully, I'm amazed the runes I placed on her were still going strong. The ones on Erza weren't going anymore. He knelt next to the celestial mage and pressed a finger to the key pouch. Ah, I see. Lucy gulped. What's wrong? Harry chuckled, holding a hand out to the girl, helping her up. Nothing is wrong with you. I place those runes on anyone I work with every time we head out on something that is always with them. For you it was your key pouch. What I hadn't expected was your spirits reaching out to the magic and integrating into their keys. These aren't my runes anymore. They're the runes your spirits themselves absorbed. Lucy frowned. They can do that? Harry shrugged. Celestial magic is pretty rare, but I find that through magic, almost anything is possible. It doesn't make you invincible, but it will protect you from a set amount of attacks. Runes appeared floating in the shape of a skull. It would seem I underestimated your resourcefulness. No matter. Even with the girls freed, I have a backup. The battle will continue, this time with the Thunder Palace. The skull faded and Harry scowled. That bastard, with that spell he's endangered the whole town. Laxus. This has gone on far enough. Do you even realize the consequences of your actions? The tiny master froze and clutched his heart, collapsing to his knees. Master. Mirajane cried. Harry growled as Makarov was taken out of the guild by Redis and Levi. Punching his fist he scowled, "All right, ladies and dragon slayers." He turned to everyone left, "The stakes just passed forgivable. I don't care whether Laxus is in full control of his action or not. We are taking him down, and we are pretty much all that's left. Get out there, beat Freed Evergreen, and Bixlow, find Laxus, and kick his insane ass into next week." Just as every girl rose and nodded, turning to the door, "One more thing." Every eye turned to him. "Be very careful. Freed set out traps all over the city. If you get close to another member of the guild that hasn't been eliminated in this twisted game, he will force you to fight. Stay away from each other." Harry's eyes drifted to the red dress that Myra's magic was surging. She would awaken soon. "Gajeel, Natsu. What do you say we show that wannabe Slayer what a real dragon slayer can do?" Natsu smirked as he was encased in fire, while Gajeel began to grin fairly, his skin shifting to metal. The Battle of Fairy Tale had turned into the hunt for the Thunder Legion. Chapter 12. Sorry for the delay. I was massively absorbed in another project and lost all desire for this story. Don't own Harry Potter or Fairy Tale. Landing on a rooftop, Harry stared bewildered as Lucy managed to beat Bixlow. Even at full power, Leo was said to not even come close to that. Or spirit's strength determined by the magic of their summoner. Well, it would make sense. She summoned all of her spirits at once and called upon the Celestial Spirit King. Even if it was only for a split second. Turning away, he frowned at the dark power rising off to his left. That's Freed. He leapt off. Freed was strong and he doubted many could beat the guy. Landing down, he growled in anger as the green-haired mage was wailing on a downed elfman. Launching himself forward, he managed to catch Freed off guard and send him flying with a punch to the face. But he froze as a massive wave of magic burst forth. Magic that felt extremely familiar to him. Turning, he saw a gigantic magical circle glowing above and below Mirajane. "No." Her voice distorting with power. Harry stared stunned as Mira was fully enveloped in her magic, and for the first time in so many years he laid eyes upon the Satan soul. Seeing her remaining sibling tortured must have broken through that barrier she had accidentally formed when her sister died. Freed sat up with a bruise on his cheek, staring stunned. The green-haired mage hadn't been part of Fairy Tale back then. He had never felt Myra's cold, all-consuming magic. So much magic, this isn't possible. "You're in trouble now, Freed." The green-haired man turned to the one mage that seemed to always be on Laxus's mind, the one his friend said he had to beat to prove he was the best. "There was a time when Mirajane's power scared even me." He turned his eyes to the woman as wings erupted from her back. "I wish you luck, little runist. What you're seeing now is only a third of the power buried under grief and pain." Freed's eyes widened and he leapt away as in a single punch Mira had destroyed the bridge. He has to be bluffing. That would put her on par with the master. Darkness explosion. He dodged the blast and sent several runes back at the woman. As Mira glared at Freed with pure undiluted hatred in her eyes, Harry knelt to the barely conscious elfman. "You doing all right, man?" he asked, waving his hand over the guy's body. "Right, stupid question." "Mira," he reached blindly out to his sister. "She's fine, elfman. She finally reawakened her takeover magic. I'll make sure she's fine. Come, let's get you over to Kana." Elfman shook his head swiftly. "No, you don't understand. After so long she..." An explosion sounded and he looked up as Freed was now some kind of creature with black skin. But Mira was just flailing about, throwing power around and attacking. "She's lost control. This isn't Mira, it's the demon." "I know. She was making the same mistake Elfman did back then." Elfman just stared stunned. "You know about that?" Harry set Elfman down next to Kana. "I've known about the dangerous side of your magic long before Lasana. Elfman. It's why your sister stuck to basic creatures that couldn't fight back. I had a feeling this would happen when she reawakened her power. I could feel it surging." Kana gulped as Harry turned back to the fight as Mira knocked Freed out of the sky and was preparing the final blow. "You told Freed that her power scared you. What are you planning to do?" Harry just looked over his shoulder and smirked. "You of all people should know when to show all of your cards, Kana." He vanished from in front of them. Her eyes widened at that implication. "Laxus may get his wish." Elfman sat up. "I remember some of the spars those two had. We may find out who is the strongest in the guild." Kana turned and stared stunned as Harry had caught Myra's fist less than an inch from Freed's face. Mira growled as her fist stopped. This pathetic whelp needed to die. He had hurt her family. That's enough, Mirajane. Freed may be an asshole, but he was misguided by another. You don't need to kill him. She turned to face the one who dared defy her and growled at the intense green eyes. Those eyes meant something, something familiar. His very blood was calling to her. Something like that girl. She was a demon. Perhaps she was supposed to consume them as she had before. The snack has returned. She purred and jumped back. Harry looked down at the beaten and battered mage. Time for you to leave, Freed. This is now between us. Why would you save me? Freed asked, stunned. Cracking his neck, he grunted. Your little group has separated itself from the guild. You began to believe yourself so much better than the rest, but you, Bixlow, even Evergreen. You are fairy tale mages, friends, allies. You lost your way, and Laxus lost his mind. Now I will knock some sense into him. But first I have to do the same thing with the woman I've found myself drawn towards since coming to Fairy Tale. Freed stared stunned as the guy walked towards the she-devil without so much as a shiver in his voice. You're crazy, you know that, right? The power she wields, it's truly terrifying. Harry just smirked at him. That's the best kind of woman, Freed. One who can keep your head from getting overinflated. Besides, I've always loved a little danger in my life. He turned back to his opponent. You ready? This time you won't escape me. I shall consume you, she growled. A mist began emitting from his body as he smirked. Consume me, my Mirajane. Moving a little fast, aren't we? We haven't even gone on our first date yet. Elfman winced. Hey, come on, man. Don't say that in front of me. Kana couldn't hold in her laugh despite her efforts. I had wondered where his drunk personality came from. She knew Harry better than most, and knew that deep down the guy was a jokester. He loved pulling pranks and joking around with his friends. But he was so serious all the time. She only saw that side of him when he was pissed in one of her drinking challenges. The guy flirted with everything that had breasts and usually used her as a pillow once he passed out. He is a fool. She is far too strong. Only the master or Laxus can beat her. Freed groaned near her. No response was needed as the two began to exchange blows. Every single hit that landed sent a shockwave through the air, leaving Freed stunned, as both were moving at such a speed that told him that Mirajane had been holding back against him. Laxus stared at the runes Freed had left for him. Mira versus Harry. Finally some entertainment. He was interrupted from his thoughts as a man stepped through the door with staffs strapped to his back. So you finally showed up, he sneered. Harry spun around a swipe of Mira's claws and delivered a swift strike to her side. Come now, Mira. What happened to the days when we beat each other to near death? Mira scowled and whirled around, a black ball of magic forming in her hands. Soul extinction. Harry just sighed. She was still just throwing power around. Batting the spell away, his eyes widened as she grabbed his hand and punched him right in the gut with her other one. You want to be beaten to the death, then so be it. She froze as she remembered being in the same room as the girl. When is the wedding, Mira? Shaking her head, she growled and struck again, but this time her fist met his, causing a shockwave to ripple out from them. A sharp pain rose in her head, and another vision came. Do I get to be your maid of honor, Mira? Get out of my head. She's dead, 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 dead. Harry's eyes widened and he jumped back as the Satan Soul's red began to fade to a blue. You're willing to go that far, Mirajane? All the way to Halphase? Their eyes met and Harry into her mind. Give in. They all deserve what they get. Harry landed in a small town. Looking around, he saw 3 different demonic forms surrounding a human form. You know, I thought she had kicked your asses already. 3 different versions of Mirajane whirled around and stared at him. Our morsel seems to be quite insistent on pissing me off. Satan's soul growled and launched herself forward, but found her face planted in the ground with a boot. Harry smirked as chains erupted from the ground surrounding her 2 forbidden forms. You forget, this isn't your mind yet. It is hers. Mira had risen, her magic swirling around her head. I will not make the same mistake that caused my sister's death. As the 3 demonic consciousness were subdued by Mirajane again, Harry turned and stared at the memory. What the? Lysana's body had burst into golden dust, with a swirling cloud over their heads, something some of his earliest memories matched. Magic that had brought him to his mother on Earthland. Mira panted, not used to having so much magic being used all at once in so long. Looking up she stared as her memory of Lasana's death was there alongside another memory. This one had a baby of no more than 2 at the most staring up at a swirling vortex of clouds. She gasped as the baby began to fade into the light, much like her sister had. She could still be alive, Harry mumbled. Mira gulped. Lasana is still alive? Harry frowned. Possibly. Her injuries didn't look life-threatening in the immediate time, and her bursting into light like that, that's a dimensional portal. It probably sucked her body into it. Harry stared. A portal like that has to be extremely powerful to drag a living being into it. Only someone so weak, such as a baby, or a girl who was on the verge of magical exhaustion would be affected by a passive 1. Mira threw her arms around Harry and her lips met him. Thank you, Harry. He was always looking out for her, even risking his mind by delving into hers while it was in a war for dominance with demonic beings she thought she had tamed long ago. Everything faded to an inky black mist after that. Freed stared stunned as Mirajane slumped down and her body reverted to her normal appearance, the Slayer picking her up bridal style and laying her down next to her brother. She shouldn't have that problem anymore, Elfman, Harry said, part of him wanting to talk with the male Strauss about that memory, but it felt like something he should hear from his sister. Can everyone hear me? Harry looked up. Warren? Wow, haven't heard your voice in a while, Harry said. It's good to hear from you to Harry, but we need help. Look in the sky. Laxus has activated his Thunder Palace. If that thing goes off it will fry the whole town. We all need to work together to destroy them. Yay. And why should I do anything for you after what you did, Warren? Max's voice called up, and that just seemed to be the floodgate to the rest as fights began to erupt over Warren's spell. Harry growled in anger. Shut the fuck up. You jackasses beat the hell out of each other daily, he shouted to the sky, which silenced everyone. Look, it doesn't matter what you did to each other right now. When we finish this you can all fight each other again, and then probably get drunk with each other afterward, but for now, our priority should be saving the innocent people in Magnolia, and if you don't fucking put this aside right now, when we all die from Laxus's crazy ass stunt I will personally make sure any demon or devil we run into in the afterlife will pale in comparison to me. Silence reigned until a voice he recognized as Erza spoke up. When we do this, be careful of how much you destroy. The lacrima is protected with body link magic. Harry grunted as his temper fell. Aika, is it ready? Yes, Harry, I have them all in place, she commented, sounding very amused. Harry nodded. All right. Well then, destroy as many as you guys can. I've already prepared for the backlash. Destroy as many as you can. Harry, that was Natsu's voice. He's coming for you. He sounded like he had taken a beating. Harry sighed and turned to the 4 mages resting near him. You heard that, yay? Kana nodded and helped Juvia stand. We'll take out the lacrima. You give Grandpa's little brat a much deserving spanking. Harry smirked and knelt next to Mira, waving his hand over her. Mira shot up. What? Mira, Laxus is on the way. I need you to go with your brother and Kana. Destroy as much of the Thunder Palace as you can. Harry, take him down. She stood and brushed off her dress. She knew that Harry could beat Laxus. As the lacrima all shattered and 7 golden pillars of light erupted around Magnolia, Makarov stumbled out breathing heavy. What is going on? The pillars seemed to expand and combine, forming a golden shield that absorbed the lighting from the palace, the magics forming a massive symbol of fairy tale, then bursting apart with little fairies dancing all around the shield before both faded away. Did that brat somehow manage to recreate Fairy Sphere? No? That seemed more like the one his family member used to protect him, but heavily adjusted to not need a sacrifice. He and poor Lyuzica had studied the magic for a long while when the boy was out. Suddenly he was sucked into a vision. Warren had connected everyone via his magic and forgot to disconnect it. All around the town fairy tale wizards stopped, and when they closed their eyes they all saw a massive lightning bolt strike down on the outskirts of town, revealing Laxus. You just have an answer for everything, don't you? Seems I wasn't the only one chasing the 3 spells, he growled out. Harry grunted and turned towards the man. That one was quite easy for me. My uncle had done most of the work for me. The hard one was fairy glitter. I've been around the master enough for fairy law. Taking in Laxus's appearance he smirked. Natsu and Gajeel gave you quite the run for your money, huh, Laxus? Laxus growled, scales erupting down his arms. Shall we settle this, Harry? I owe you from that beating before. You always were one to hold on to grudges. as Harry's usually emerald green eyes faded to a deep blue and glowed. "Fine, Laxus. You want to fight so bad, let's go." Laxus opened his mouth and a massive bolt of lightning blasted towards him, but his eyes widened when Harry moved faster than lightning and danced around the bolt, clapping his hand together as spikes of ice formed around him and shot towards him. Laxus coated his hands in lightning and punched the spikes into shards. Harry managed to smirk as with a punch to the ground massive pillars began stabbing forward towards Laxus. Thunderstep. Laxus's body transformed into physical lightning and escaped the cage that had begun to form. His body reformed into a physical mass and he looked around, but Harry wasn't anywhere in sight. A snap sounded above him and his eyes widened as he looked up to see a massive meteor came crashing towards him. Laxus growled in anger. Lightning devastation. With a punch, the ice meteor shattered into mist. "You can't beat me, Potter." Harry stared as Laxus's muscles began bulging and his pupils faded. Makarov frowned at the sight. His grandson was being consumed by his power. Harry was right. Laxus was being driven insane by the poorly implanted lacrima within him. Harry was holding his own though, but how was he moving so fast? He was too smart to be using lightning-based magic against Laxus. Harry's eyes widened as Laxus began charging at him faster than ever. He managed to block the hit with a sheet of ice and counter. Attacked with a foot to the gut, but that was lucky as he came back and he could only really prevent the guy from landing a solid blow. Stomping his foot, pillars of ice launched him up and Harry began collecting his magic. Laxus shattered the spikes and roared, "This is the end. I will exterminate you." He charged down as fast as he could. Most of the people in the city would only think it was a lightning bolt striking. Harry sighed, "Your rigor," his magic glowing from his hands. Makarov's eyes would have widened if they were opened as a wave of blue magic erupted from Harry and he saw time itself seem to freeze. Laxus was still moving, but only because he had been moving so fast before. Harry jumped out of the way of Laxus and with a swift shoo to the side of the head time unfroze and Laxus crashed into the ruined bridge across the field. Laxus cried out in pain as he collided with the side of the bridge. How are you faster than lighting?" Harry sighed and limped his way towards the lightning slayer. He had broken something from how hard he had kicked the guy. "Nothing can move faster than light, Laxus. You are the first person I've had to use that technique on." He sighed as he collapsed next to the man. "You back, Laxus?" He closed his eyes and sighed. "This is the calmest I've had my emotions in so long. I was being messed with, wasn't I?" Harry chuckled, feeling the amount of magic he had used push him towards unconsciousness. "Remind me to beat your dad down." Laxus. The guy was a bastard. "Tell me something, how did you match my speed?" Laxus asked, fading fast. "I haven't named the spell yet, but I wasn't matching your speed. I spread my magic out. It was so cold that it creates a bubble where time itself freezes. I don't like to use it because it drains my magic so fast." Laxus chuckled as his vision faded to black. "You always were creative with your spells." Harry groaned as he returned to consciousness. "Damn." A chuckle sounded not far from him. "You fight on par with even Laxus and come back with only that. You never cease to amuse me, Harry." Harry didn't even have to turn to identify that voice. It was a voice that had been like a father to him for years. "You know us, Master, we're always up for a fight." Their eyes met for the first time since his heart attack at the talent show. "You've been hiding some things from us, haven't you? The ability to freeze time temporarily. Not bad." Harry sighed. "I knew I couldn't keep that a secret for long." "What happened to Laxus?" "He was treated by poorly Asika, and then resigned from the guild. Said he needed to learn how to control his power so that he wouldn't lose control again." Harry grinned. "So he wasn't expelled?" Makarov shook his head. "No, I spoke with a few other guild masters and we decided it wasn't his fault. If he should come back he will be welcomed back." Harry nodded. "Good, I know he can get a hold of this. He isn't his father." He tried to get up, but weight was holding him down. Makarov laughed at the face Harry made when he saw Mirajane asleep on his chest. "She hasn't your side since they brought you back. I had begun wondering when you two couldn't stay away anymore." He sobered somewhat. "How do you feel?" "Starving," he grumbled. Mira giggled as she returned to consciousness. "I'll go make you something to eat." "Are you well enough for the Fantasia parade?" Makarov asked. Harry sat up. "Even if I wasn't I'd find a way to help." Laxus grinned as the parade passed. This year was amazing. The entire parade was steadily snowed on, but as the snowflakes fell you could see some fairies dancing around them. Harry was changing things up this year. "I'll be back, Gramps." He turned to leave but stopped as people started cheering. Turning back, he teared up as his grandpa was standing on the top of the tallest float with his pointer finger raised and his thumb out. The symbol he had made as a kid before he was a mage, and everyone following suit.